or will threaten to send those images to relatives, friends, school teachers, college teachers for the purpose of defamation, or try to extract money by giving these threats. As I said, because age of consent is 18 under law and even under Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act, all these cases land up in juvenile courts. When the perpetrator is a person less than 18 years of age, but if the person is more than 18 years of age and the victim is a child, it will land up in a regular court. Now this defense of there was consent does not really stand in court. And that is where this self-awareness or the maintenance of this hygiene is very important. Now, sometimes I know this falls on deaf ears. I used to teach this subject in law college a few years back, Information Technology Act. And my students were concerned only with one section under the IT Act, and that was section of pornography. So the section of pornography states that circulation and publication of pornographic material online is an offense punishable with 3 years of imprisonment. So they used to say, ma'am, but viewing is not an offense. Or storing material on your computer for self-viewing is not an offense. So a valid defense, they are all law students, adult law students. So I used to tell them, just to understand this portion of how risky this can be, I used to give them one example. That imagine you are studying in your room, or pretending to study, and you're watching porn, and nobody in the room, the door is closed, but the window behind you is open, and a burglar tries to come in. So you see him, you're smart enough, you catch him, you take him to the nearest police station. In all probability, the police station knows who he is because he's a habitual offender. So they give him a warning and they let him go. लेकिन जाते जाते वो बोलता है, लेकिन साहब आपको देखना चाहिए था ये लड़का क्या देख रहा था. So that amounts to publication. And publication means imprisonment up to 5 years. It is not it's not a petty offense section that gets invoked. Now, convincing a judge that it is okay to view pornography becomes very difficult, let me tell you, because we also get a lot of sexual harassment cases which gets translated into vernacular. We had one case where one boy had said, what the 4-letter word, and it got translated into vernacular when we went for bail. And it was so difficult to convince the judge that this is a very common language now between adolescents, so it's a legitimate reason for bail. So I'm going to stop here because I know we are already out of time. I think I have managed in the 20 minutes to give you at least an overview of how the law works, how the Indian legal system works, and how the adolescents are at a very delicate stage where they would not know from right and wrong, but the law is very clear about what right and wrong is. So self-awareness is the key, and participation of all stakeholders, I think, is the key to keep our children and young adults safe online. Thank you.
Ma'am, I request you to stay on stage. Thank you so much for your lucid lecture. Over to the chairperson.
Can we take questions? No.
Yes. Yes, sir.
That was a very enlightening lecture, madam. Thank you. We cannot turn a blind eye to such things now. The dangers start right from birth, and the adolescent age group is deeply immersed in the hazards of this problem. So, any questions?
Ma'am, can you just have a word on POCSO?
So the Protection of Children from Sexual Offences Act was enacted in 2014, which talks of two very important provisions which all of us should know. One is it defines all forms of sexual harassment. It also defines forms of online sexual harassment, and it defines forms of aggravated forms of sexual harassment where the sexual harassment is committed by people in authority, people in trust, just making the quantum of punishment more. Now, it doesn't stop here. It defines the child as a child less than 18 years of age. It says that anybody less than 18 is incapable of giving informed consent. So that becomes, it's a tricky situation actually when it comes to real life scenarios, but we need to deal with it. And the most important in terms of a stakeholder responsibility is mandatory reporting. Now, I get a lot of questions that is there a scope for discretion for mandatory reporting? And the simple answer to it is no. Nobody can exercise discretion as to what to report. It is for the courts to decide, it is for the police to decide whether to register FIR or not, and it is for the courts to decide whether to take it for criminal trial or not. I'm sorry to say you because I do have that privilege of, as a lawyer, of privileged communication with my client. But for doctors, those privileged communication under law for POCSO is not available. So doctors, counselors, psychiatrists have a mandatory obligation to report. So it is very important that we understand this obligation. And also sometimes we have to understand that even the police are not trigger happy. Just because you've gone with reporting, arrests are not going to happen. There will be, the police will also take, they're very well trained juvenile, police at the juvenile units who will exercise a certain process to decide whether to register a case or not. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It becomes very important for us, gynecologists as well as pediatricians and every one of us. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Ma'am, I request you to be on stage. Vaishali ma'am. I request the chairpersons to please come on stage and felicitate our speaker. A huge round of applause for ma'am. Thank you so much for sparing your valuable morning time for us, ma'am. Thank you so much. I request Dr. Vaishali Korde ma'am to felicitate our chairpersons. I thank our chairpersons for chairing the session. Thank you so much. Within no time, we are going to start with our inaugural function. We have had wonderful lectures in the morning, and I hope you all are enjoying. Yes. It's time for inauguration, and I hand over the mic to Dr. Sushma Sharma, ma'am.
Thank you, Priya. It's time for our inaugural session. Our chief guest has been with us already. So a very warm welcome to you, sir, on behalf of the entire MIRS group of institutions and Mimar Medical College at that. Now for the inaugural function, may I request the dignitaries to please grace the dais. The dignitaries for today's program are our chief guest, Dr. Samir Dalwai, sir, our executive directors, Dr. Suchitra Nagre, ma'am, and Dr. Virendra Gaisa, sir, our principal, Dr. Sandhya Kulkarni, and our three chairpersons of three heads of department, Dr. Vaishali Korde from Department of OBGY, Dr. Shahaji Gaikwad from Department of Pediatrics, and Dr. Devidas Deshmukh from Department of Forensic Medicine. May I please request you to grace the dais for this inaugural function. What the world needs most today, and perhaps what it is lacking the most today also, is a sense of harmony and peace within mankind. As is the tradition with the entire Myers group of institutions, we start every auspicious occasion with the World Peace Prayer. This World Peace Prayer is not a prayer pertinent to any religion, community, or region of the world. It is a prayer which has been put together by our very own Director General and Founder President Dr. Vishwashanti sir. And it prays for overall humanity to be in peace and harmony with each other. May I request all of you to please stand in your places, close your eyes, fold your hands in prayer, and let us all get together and pray for world peace.
ॐ नमो जीयाद्या वेद प्रतिपाद्या जय जय स्वसंवेद्या आत्मरूपा देवातूति गणेषु सकलार्थमतिप्रकाशु म्हणे निवृत्तिदासु अवधारि गोदी गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णु गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुसाक्षात् परब्रह्मा तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः। पूर्णमदः पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। हरि ओम्। ईशावास्यमिदं सर्वं यत्किञ्च जगत्यां जगत् तेन त्यक्तेन भुञ्जीथाः मा गृध कस्यचिद्धनम्। ॐ भूर्भुवस्वः तत्सवितुर्वरेण्यं भर्गो देवस्य धीमहि धियो यो न प्रचोदयात्। सर्वेऽपि सुखिनः सन्तु सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखमाप्नुयात्। शान्तिः अन्तरिक्षशान्तिः पृथिवीशान्तिः आपशान्तिः औषधयशान्तिः वनस्पतयशान्तिः विश्वेदेवाशान्तिः ब्रह्मशान्तिः सर्वशान्तिः शान्तिरेव शान्तिः सामा शान्तिरेधि। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Any academic institute depends on who is the head of academics. We are very lucky to have a hardcore teacher at heart and a researcher at that as our principal, who's the academic head of Mymar Medical College, Dr. Sandhya Kulkarni. May I now request our principal, Dr. Sandhya Kulkarni, to please deliver the welcome address.
Good morning. On behalf of MIR MIT Pune's MIMR Medical College and Dr. Bhausaheb Sardesai Rural Hospital, a warm welcome to our chief guest, Dr. Dalwai, distinguished guests, dignitaries on the dais, off the dais, and all the delegates of this conference. As Dr. Sushma has mentioned, the academic institute has to be the research-oriented. So we at Mymar have keen interest in research. Our faculty, PG students, UG students, they are actively involved in the research. And we all know that university, NMC norms, the PG students, they are supposed to attend conference, present their research work in the form of paper and posters. And also the faculty, if they need promotions, they need to do the publications. So with this background, actually these establishments from the university and NMC came much later, but we at Mymar, we started our annual research society conference way back in 2012. And since then, we are motivating our students and faculty for the research. This 11th annual research society conference, the theme is Kishore Bharat. It's a conclave on adolescent health, shaping healthier tomorrow. We all know it's a say, our youth, our future. In India, there are 253 million adolescents, which is 18% of the total population. That means every fifth person or the individual is in the group of 10 to 19 years. Adolescence, it is the rapid developmental phase of life. It's a transitional period of physical and psychological development between childhood and adulthood. Truly, it's a critical vulnerability and very important time to lay down the induction, or you can say the foundation of good health. This age group, the adolescent age group, they are searching for identity. They seek more independence and they are looking for new experiences. They get influenced by the gender, peer group, and cultural background, even family expectations. We have heard 2 sessions in the morning, and I think many of these things, they have been covered in these 2 sessions. Past few decades, we know that our lifestyle has been changing. And there are many other things which are responsible for this changed lifestyle. In this, we are seeing many families, nowadays they are the nuclear families, having single child, both the parents, they are working, and truly the quality time which parents should spend with their children is not sufficient. Dr. Bhushan Shukla has said, what Meenakshi has asked the question, he said 30 minutes together is important for the family. I think we all should at least keep that in mind, 30 minutes with our family. In fact, these adolescents, they require nutrition, education, counseling, guidance to ensure their development into healthy adults. And if we neglect this particular thing, then these children, they will land up into health problems. So these health problems, they can be early or unintended pregnancy, sexually transmitted infections or disorders, nutritional disorders, obesity. Nowadays, we are seeing children obesity too much. and use of substances, maybe tobacco, alcohol, drugs, and whatnot. Also, there may be injuries, violence, and mental health issues. We have already had a session by Dr. Shukla in the morning. We, being the health professionals, it's our responsibility to safeguard children and adolescents. So keeping this in mind, we have taken adolescent health for discussion in this particular conference. If you all see the program of our conference, it comprises all the issues which the adolescent they are going to face, such as mental health, developmental and behavioral issues, immunization, well-being, medical, legal and ethical issues, and safeguarding. So let us enrich ourselves with all these sessions by eminent personalities who are exclusively working with adolescents. Once again, I welcome one and all the best to the delegates who are presenting their research work on this platform. Have a wonderful time at Mimar. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. And now everybody's been waiting to know who is our chief guest. And it's my absolute proud privilege to introduce our chief guest for today, Dr. Sameer Dalwai, sir. Sir is having not only an MD, DCH, DNB, FCPS, FIAP, but also an LLB to his credit, which is noteworthy, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Sameer Dalwai is basically a developmental behavioral pediatrician. He is the founder director of New Horizons Child Development Center, Mumbai, India. His clinical attachments include Hinduja Healthcare Hospital and Nanavati Super Speciality Hospital at Mumbai. Sir has been awarded the Government of India's Rajiv Gandhi Manav Seva Award for services to children in the year 2012. Sir also has to his credit several other portfolios. He has been the National Treasurer IAP 2022-2023. He's the National Joint Secretary IAP 2020-21. He's been on the Executive Board of the IAP 2018-19. Sir has been the President of IAP Mumbai in 2016-17. Sir has also been the foundation of New Horizons Online Intervention Program, which I'm sure Sir would have served the children in a big way during the COVID period. And Sir has also been a member of the government of Maharashtra's Pediatric COVID Task Force during the same pandemic period. Sir is also a chairperson of IAP chapter of Neurodevelopmental Pediatrics 2014-2017. We are so privileged to have you as our chief guest, sir. May I now request our Executive Director, Dr. Virendra Ghaisa, sir, to kindly felicitate our chief guest, Dr. Sameer Dalwai. Thank you so much. Light symbolizes knowledge, just as darkness is supposed to be embolic of ignorance. Jyotirmay Jyotirdehi, I think a sentence which will echo with every person who is associated with passing on the light of knowledge. May the one who is enlightened pass on the light of knowledge to everybody. Also, traditionally, we light the symbolic lamp as a mark of inaugural of any function. May I now request our dignitaries to please proceed for the lamp lighting ceremony. Thank you so much, dear dignitaries. We are proud of the fact that this conference has seen a large number of entries of scientific papers and posters, which is very heartening for teachers like us to see people move in the direction of research and presentations. So we have put together all these abstracts in the form of a souvenir, which features around almost 90 articles of these paper and posters and few review articles and guest articles. May I now request all the dignitaries on the dais to please release this souvenir of this conference, Annual Research Conference 2023. Thank you so much, dear dignitaries. We will be giving all these souvenirs to all the delegates who are registered in e-form, sir. May I now request our Executive Director, Dr. Virendra Ghaisas, who has earned a name for himself, not just in this country, but the globe over, in the field of rhinoplasty. So we feel so ably led by our Executive Director like you, sir. Please share your views today. Thank you.
Thank you, Sushma. Respected our guest, Dr. Samir Dalwai, dear Executive Director Suchitra, respected Principal Ma'am Dr. Kulkarni, the organizing team, Dr. Vaishali Korode, Dr. Gaikwad, and Dr. Deshmukh. You have put this a conference very nicely, and congratulations to the organizer department for putting up this conference and selecting this topic, which is, I think, close to our hearts. As a doctor, yes. As a parent, yes. I think majority of our faculty is around 50, or they have crossed 50, and of course we have juniors and we have college students as well. So as a parent, we have been, to these adolescent issues as a parent. We have typically a single child or two child where both the parents are working, and we have witnessed that as a parent and as a doctor. My personal issue was I was really hesitant in accepting that what exactly my son is having issues with my sibling, his younger son. And then we had to talk with many counselors. As maybe a doctor or as a surgeon, we had an ego like, okay, why I should go to counselor? That resistance was from that. And then it started, and then I realized it's a big issue. And luckily we had a great pediatrician and a good counselor and a good psychiatrist, and we could resolve that maybe a small issue, which could have been a bigger issue, but then we could resolve that on time. Then we have realized it, ultimately the kids, they will follow their parents. So what is this actually means, samskar, or what is actually this is, it's what about the parents. I've been through this journey, and it's really important as a society. I've been going through all these lectures also, the topics of the lectures also. Somehow, as a mimer, sir, we do follow a lot of spirituality. You must have heard this. So we really believe that spirituality, or parents who are following it, it makes a good impact. A simple prayer in the evening of any religion, I think it makes a good impact on the kids. So that makes maybe psychological more stable, or they have someone, someone is there with you. That kind of a feeling that supports this, delicate age group. That's what I feel. But I'm really keen. On the other hand, we have seen the kids of really good, great family, maybe a very spiritual, simple, middle class family, and their kids are suddenly, rebel and they follow some different path. And it's very difficult to understand. The parents are so nice, everybody in the family is so nice, but one son or one daughter, one of their family, the kids, the next generation they are just spoiled, and we don't know what has been wrong. So I've been really keen to understand from you what exactly this 5% what went wrong, what goes wrong. So it's maybe I will, after listening to your lecture about the behavior issues, I think it will be enlighten us, all of us, and we are really keen in listening to your talk. So I won't take much of your time. So again, congratulations to all the departments for putting up this wonderful topic, wonderful conference. And all the best to the juniors and whoever are presenting the paper here. It's a great platform for you to go to the state and the national level after this. So thank you so much and all the best.
Thank you so much, sir. Indeed, children are very close to every obstetrician and the pediatrician, and then they become adolescents, and that's where an expert like our chief guest will help us understand what exactly we need to know about them. So without any further delay, may I please call upon podium our chief guest for the day, Dr. Sameer Dalwai, to deliver his keynote address for us.
So I have about 45 minutes, right? Take your time. So will you let me know at around 30 minutes? Yes. Okay. Thank you. This is okay. So namaskar and my respects to Dr. Gaisas, Dr. Nagre ma'am, Dr. Sandhya Kulkarni ma'am, Dr. Korde ma'am and Dr. Shahji especially, who have taken so much of trouble and effort coordinating with me to get me here. Dr. Deshmukh sir, also Dr. Sharma ma'am, Dr. Fadnis, Dr. Pujari, as well as Jitendra Maneji, all the respected co-faculty. Madam, you spoke so well, I really enjoyed listening to you. All the respected faculty from Mymar Medical College, all the respected teachers, seniors, and all my dear young friends. First and foremost, let me express my gratitude for having been given this great honor. I don't know whether I deserve it, but I've accepted it and you've given it. So thank you so much. माझा आवाज जर एको होत असेल तर कमी करा volume. You can just check that, yeah. So thank you for the honor, and it's always a pleasure to come to a medical college. And more than anybody else, it's very interesting to see the poor fellows in apron at the back. म्हणून मला एक खरं खरं सांगा, ह्याच्यात पेपर प्रेझेंटेशन कोणाकोणाचे आहेत? प्लीज रेज युअर हँड्स. 1, 2, 3. ठीक आहे, यू आर ऑनेस्ट. 4, 5. ओके, गुड. ऑनेस्ट पीपल. दुसरा प्रश्न, अटेंडन्स मार्क होणार नाही, आलात नाही म्हणून तिथे आलेले हात वर करा. मी पण त्यातलाच आहे. कोणाला कंपल्सरी यावं लागलं आणि हात वर करा. कसं ऐकायचं होतं मला सांगा, होतं का? अच्छा, चला. तो दिस इज वॉट द इश्यू इज. आणि म्हणूनच आपण कॉलेजला आम्ही पण असताना असंच वाटायचं, तर सिनियर्सने सांगितलं आहे जायला पाहिजे कॉलेजमध्ये, सीट्स भरल्या पाहिजेत. तर एक गमतीची गोष्ट सांगतो तुम्हाला. यू कॅन स्पीक इन मराठी, राईट? एक गमतीची गोष्ट सांगतो. आफ्टर आय फिनिश्ड माय MBBS, वी वर ऑल फॅन्स ऑफ अ ग्रेट doctor called Dr. Dilip Karnad. Those who have worked in Mumbai or KEM Hospital, Mumbai, might know him. He was head of unit and medicine, general medicine, internal medicine. आणि एवढे ब्रिलियंट होते, आम्ही त्यांचे म्हणजे सर्व फॅनच, दिवानेच होतो. माझं MBBS झाल्यानंतर मी त्यांना विचारलं की मला पीडियाट्रिक्स पण पॉसिबिलिटी होती आणि इंटरनल मेडिसिन पण. तर मी त्यांना म्हटलं, सर, how did you choose to take up internal medicine and not pediatrics? Because he was a gold medalist always. You could have taken both. तर सर असे बघत मला म्हणाले, often you wonder, looking at some pediatricians, often you wonder on which side of the stethoscope is the child. He said, so often pediatricians behave like children. So he said, no, that's why I thought I'll take up adult medicine. ते जरा असे सिरियस होते, गंभीर होते. आता तेव्हाच मला कळलं की बेसिकली पिडियाट्रिशियन्स ऑल बिहेव लाईक चिल्ड्रन. पण फील्डमध्ये आल्यानंतर, ह्याच्यात काम केल्यानंतर असं पण कळलं की ॲडॉलसन्स हा जो वयोगट आहे 10 ते 18 आपण आता मगाशी म्हटलं, त्याच्यातल्या ज्या वागणुकी असतात किंवा जी मनस्थिती असते ती बहुधा 18ला संपत नाही. ती कधी 20ला पण संपत नाही. 25ला आपण मराठीत गद्दे 25 असं म्हणायचो. आणि कुणाच ठाऊक का, पण माझे वडील ते मला खूप जास्त, मी 25 असताना हे शब्द मी खूप जास्त ऐकला आहे. कदाचित ते मला काहीतरी सांगायचं असेल तेव्हा त्यांना. हॅलो, या. प्रॅक्टिस करत असताना बऱ्याच वेळा पालक आमच्याकडे येतात. बऱ्याच वेळा पालकांचं ऐकल्यावर आपल्याला असं डाऊट वाटतं नेमकं की विच साईड ऑफ द स्टेथोस्कोप, म्हटलं विच साईड ऑफ द पेरेंटिंग बॅरियर इज द चाइल्ड ऑन. कारण बऱ्याच वेळा पालक पण मुलांसारखे वागतात आणि मुलं जर मुलांसारखे वागतातच, तेव्हा ऑल ऑफ अस टुडे इफ यू आर हिअर, लेक्चर आपण कुठल्याही का अटेंड करतो? अटेंडन्स इज द कॉमनेस्ट कॉज ऑफकोर्स. पण त्यानंतर बेसिकली आपल्याला वाटतं थोडंसं करमणूक व्हायला पाहिजे. इट शुड बी एंटरटेनिंग. मजा आली पाहिजे, काहीतरी चांगलं ऐकलं पाहिजे आणि त्याहून काही समजलं आणि ते आपण जर रोज वापरू शकलो जीवनात तर मग खूपच मजा आली. तेव्हा आपण हे सर्व लक्षात ठेवून आपण पुढचं डिस्कस करूया की ॲडॉलसन्सच्याबद्दल बोलत असताना शिकण्यासारखं, पाहण्यासारखं आणि आपण स्वतः वापरण्यासारखं काय आहे. सो बेसिकली क्लिनिकल डायग्नोसिसपेक्षा एवढं एक सांगायचं आहे. सर पण मगाशी खूप छान म्हणाले उदाहरण घरातलं. आणि म्हणूनच हिस्ट्री जी असते, स्टोरी, त्या मुलाच्या जन्मापासून मुलाच्या आजूबाजूला परिसरात अवतीभोवती जे घडलेलं असतं, दॅट ॲक्च्युली इज अ रिअल वे टू कम टू द प्रॉब्लेम आणि दॅट टेल्स यू वॉट द इंटरव्हेन्शन शुड बी. कारण हा विषय असा नाहीच की आपण टेक्स्टबुकमध्ये बघून, आपण ब्लड टेस्ट करून, एक्सरे MRI करून त्याचं आपण डायग्नोसिस करू शकतो. ह्याच्यात अजिबात करता येत नाही. आणि म्हणूनच आपला अनुभव आणि आपल्या अनुभवापेक्षा जास्त आपण किती खोलात जाऊन त्या मुलाच्या जीवनाची गाथा आणि कथा विचारू शकतो त्याच्यावर मेन हे असतं. आणि म्हणूनच आज आपण डिस्कस करत असताना असंच एक उदाहरण घेऊया. त्या एका उदाहरणात बरेचसे केसेस आहेत. अ 12-year-old male adolescent is brought to your consulting room. For you, those who are students, you may be having a younger brother or a sister who's an adolescent, or you may be having your neighbors who are adolescents. So mother says that the school counselor has asked her to see a specialist for his behavior. आता ही फॅशन झालेली आहे. मुलाला काही शाळेत त्रास असेल, तो 4 वर्षाचा असो, 2 वर्षाची पण मुलं शाळेत जातातच, 2 वर्षाचा असो, 12 वर्षाचा असो, काही प्रॉब्लेम वाटला तर काउन्सिलरकडे पाठवायचं. काउन्सिलर आईवडिलांना बोलवून जणू काय त्याने काहीतरी खूप मोठी चूक केलेली आहे, त्याला काउन्सिलरकडे, स्पेशलिस्टकडे, थेरपिस्टकडे पाठवा बिहेवियरसाठी. सो व्हॉट विल यू डू? आता जनरली आय वुड हॅव लाईक टू हॅव एन इंटरॅक्शन, पण ऑप्शन्स देत असताना व्हॉट सीम टू बी दी ऑप्शन्स इन दिस करंट सीझन, व्हॉट इज अ फ्लेवर ऑफ द सीझन, व्हॉट इज इन फॅशन, असं जर आईला सांगितलं, आपण बऱ्याच लोकांकडे हा कदाचित अनुभव आला असेल की मुलाचं काहीतरी बिहेवियर बिघडतं आहे, तुम्ही कन्सल्ट करा. कोणाला कन्सल्ट करूया? रिफर टू अ सायकॉलॉजिस्ट और अ बिहेवियर थेरपिस्ट, ओटिस्ट, डेव्हलपमेंटल बिहेवियरल पीडियाट्रिशियन लाईक मी, चाइल्ड सायकॅट्रिस्ट लाईक डॉक्टर भूषण. और आपण काय म्हणतो, जाऊ दे ना, वी काउन्सल द पेरेंट्स की टू बी नाईस अँड काइंड टू द चाइल्ड, और वी काउन्सल द चाइल्ड टू बी नाईस अँड काइंड टू द पेरेंट्स, और वी डू ऑल ऑफ द अबव. और व्हेरी ऑफन वी डू जाऊ दे ना, नंतर या, आपण बघूया, होईल बरं. वी ट्राय टू पुश इट अंडर द कार्पेट. वाय डू वी डू दॅट? Because very often we are trying to look for a definition from a textbook in our mind which isn't there, and hence we don't know what to do with it. We know what to do with malaria. My friends from pediatrics were telling me in the morning, इकडे rickettsial feverचे केसेस आहेत, चिकनगुन्या आहे, आता तो नवीन परत कोविड व्हायरस येतोय, त्याची आपली तयारी आहे काय करायची ती. मुलाला कंप्लेंट आहे शाळेतून की याच्या बिहेवियरमध्ये काय प्रॉब्लेम आहे, काय करायचं आपल्याला कळत नाही. आणि मग आपण काय करतो? आपण ऑनलाईन जातो, आपण कुठेतरी कोणाला तरी शोधतो, आणि हे एक आर्टिकल आलेलं की एव्हरीबडी इन इंडिया हॅज बिकम अ थेरपिस्ट. आणि हे सर्वात जास्त कुठे आहे? इंस्टाग्रामवर, फेसबुकवर. ते एवढं प्रचलित आहे की सध्याचे सायकॉलॉजी स्टुडंट्स ते सुद्धा इंस्टाग्राम जास्त स्टडी करतात, टेक्स्टबुक स्टडी करत नाहीत. कारण एवढा इम्पॅक्टफुल झालेलं आहे. पीपल आर गोईंग टू दीज सो कॉल्ड कन्सल्टंट्स ओव्हर द इंटरनेट बिकॉज त्यांचे 2-3 पोस्ट चांगले असतात, ते कधी कधी दिसायला चांगले असतात, कपडे चांगले घातलेले असतात वगैरे वगैरे, आणि म्हणून त्यांचा प्रॅक्टिस चालते. पण हे सर्व आपल्याला करायचं नसेल आणि जर आपल्याला सांगितलं की ह्या मुलाला काहीतरी गडबड आहे 12-13 वर्षाचा, तुम्ही काहीतरी करा, तर आपण काय केलं पाहिजे? तर आपण प्रथम आई-वडिलांशी त्या मुलाशी बोललं पाहिजे आणि संवाद साधला पाहिजे. काय बोललं पाहिजे, काय विचारलं पाहिजे की बाबा किंवा आई, व्हॉट काइंड ऑफ बिहेवियर डू यू थिंक इज प्रॉब्लेमॅटिक? तुमचा नेमका प्रॉब्लेम काय? नाही, शाळेतून कंप्लेंट केले, पण कशाबद्दल कंप्लेंट केले? नाही, तो बरोबर वागत नाही ह्याच्याबरोबर कंप्लेंट केल्या. बरोबर वागत नाही म्हणजे नेमका काय करतो? धोंडे मारतो का कोणाला? टीचरला आता काय स्टॅब वगैरे केलं आहे का? इंक टाकलं आहे कोणावर? शांत बसून आहे, बोलतच नाही की बोलता बोलता थांबतच नाही? नेमकं काय हे आपण विचारलं पाहिजे. कारण वागत नाही, बरोबर वागत नाही, हा काय डायग्नोसिस होऊ शकत नाही आणि ह्याच्यावर तुम्ही काहीच करू शकत नाही. म्हणून व्हॉट काइंड ऑफ बिहेवियर डू यू थिंक इज प्रॉब्लेमॅटिक असं आपण विचारलं पाहिजे. ओके, सो फार फाईन. आता ह्याच्यात आपल्याला 4 ऑप्शन्स असू शकतात. मदर मे से काहीच प्रॉब्लेमॅटिक नाही आहे, माझं मूल परफेक्ट आहे, शाळेतल्याच लोकांना त्रास आहे काहीतरी, त्यांना थेरपी दिली पाहिजे. ऑर शी थिंक्स दॅट द चाइल्ड डज नॉट, माझं ऐकतच नाही तो. ऑर शी थिंक्स ही इज टू अग्रेसिव्ह. ऑर शी थिंक्स ही डज नॉट स्टडी इनफ. आता मेनी ऑफ द सिनियर लेडीज हिअर हॅव स्टार्टेड स्माइलिंग बिकॉज दे आर थिंकिंग अबाउट व्हॉट हॅपन्स ॲट होम. सो देर आर दीज 4 ऑप्शन्स. तुम्ही नेमकं विचारलं की नेमका प्रॉब्लेम काय आहे, तर काहीच प्रॉब्लेम नाही किंवा माझं ऐकतच नाही होतो, खूप अग्रेसिव्ह आहे किंवा तो अभ्यास करत नाही. ह्या 4 गटात द आन्सर विल कम. इज दॅट राईट? ऑल द मदर्स आर एग्री? ऑल राईट. आता पहिला सिनारिओ बघूया आपण. काहीच प्रॉब्लेम नाही मुलात असं आई म्हणते, पण शाळेतून वारंवार कंप्लेंट्स येतात, रायटिंगमध्ये कंप्लेंट्स येतात. बऱ्याच इतर लोकांनी त्या आईला सांगितलं की तुमचा मुलगा ना शाळेत असं करतो, माझ्या मुलीला छेडतो, त्रास देतो वगैरे वगैरे. आणि हे आपण जरा डिटेलमध्ये गेल्यावर आपल्याला कळतं. ही इज फाउंड डिस्टर्बिंग अदर्स इन द क्लासरूम, प्लेइंग द फूल, ही लव्स मेकिंग अदर्स लाफ, अँड वेन पीपल लाफ ही इज व्हेरी हॅपी अँड ही लाईक्स दॅट अटेन्शन. बट ही इज गुड ॲट हिज स्टडीज ऑल्सो अँड स्कोर्स वेल, विच इज वॉट द मदर बेसिकली फादर वॉन्ट्स, की आम्ही फी देतोय, अभ्यास चांगला चालला आहे, बाकी जाऊ दे. शी डज नॉट अग्री विथ द स्कूल काउन्सिलर की का तुम्ही माझ्या मुलाला टार्गेट करताय, माझं मूल परफेक्टच आहे. आता व्हॉट वुड यू से? कॅन वी आस्क? व्हॉट वुड यू से? का असं होतं? जोरात. पर्स्पेक्टिव्ह ऑफ एव्हरी पर्सन इज डिफरंट. आणि आईचा तर वेगळा पर्स्पेक्टिव्ह असतोच, कारण आपल्याकडे बऱ्याच आया ज्या असतात त्या अशा असतात. आणि म्हणून आपल्याला खरोखर रिॲलिटी काय ह्याच्याबद्दल चेक करावं लागतं. आणि म्हणून इतर मुलांना, वर्गातल्या टीचर्सना, इतर मुलांना, त्याच्या मित्रांना, इतर शिक्षक जे असतील, त्याचे इतर मित्र जे असतील, नातेवाईक जे असतील, ह्या सर्वांकडे आपल्याला इस्पेशली ॲडॉल्संट मुलांच्याबद्दल विचारावं लागतं. पण सर्वात गरजेचं आहे की त्या मुलाशी आपण स्वतः विचारलं पाहिजे की नेमका प्रॉब्लेम काय आहे, का तू असा वर्गात वागतोस. वी जस्ट कांट ब्रश इट अंडर द कार्पेट. So this is one very important issue to understand, that parents are very often in denial, initially at least, as sir was telling us, and hence you need to go beyond it and ask. Scenario 2, तो माझा ऐकतच नाही, he does not listen to me. असं म्हटल्यावर आपल्याला 4 प्रश्न विचारले जातात. ऐकत नाही म्हणजे कैसे? सुनता नहीं है मतलब क्या? कान से नहीं सुनता है, दिमाग से नहीं सुनता है, हरकतों से नहीं सुनता है, कि दिल से नहीं सुनता है? याचा काय अर्थ? अहो तुम्ही बोलतो, मी बोलते हो, पण तो बळत पण नाही माझ्याकडे बघायला. मतलब कान से नहीं सुनता है, गेट इज हिअरिंग इव्हॅल्युएशन डन, पॉसिबल. ऐकतो सर्व, पण त्याला तो ते करत नाही किंवा त्याला ते कळलंय का असं मला डाऊट वाटतो. म्हणजे 5-6 वेळा सांगितलं तर त्याच्यातली एखादी गोष्ट करतो, म्हणजे मे बी ही इज नॉट अंडरस्टँडिंग क्लिअरली. अहो कळतं सर्व, त्याला सर्व माहीत असतं काय करायचं, नंतर मला सांगतो, पण उलटच करेल काहीतरी. सो हरकतों से ही डझंट लिसन टू द मदर. अँड फायनली दिल से, त्याला डॉक्टर सर्व ऐकू येतं, त्याला सर्व कळतं, त्याला कसं करायचं ते पण माहीत असतं, मुद्दाम करणार नाही, मुद्दामच उलटं करेल. हो की नाही? सर्व आया हसते तिकडे. So what we have to understand is these are all different scenarios. If he is not listening, the serious way to go about it is, he used to listen earlier, but he does not listen now. डॉक्टर तो अगदी गेल्या वर्षापर्यंत, कोविडच्या अगोदरपर्यंत सर्व माझं ऐकायचा. आता कोविड झाला तेव्हापासून ऐकत नाही. डॉक्टर गेल्या वर्षीपर्यंत करायचा. मी गेल्या वर्षी सहळीला गेलेलो, नागपूरला काकांकडे गेलो, तेव्हापासून ऐकत नाही. सो पीपल हॅव समथिंग इन देअर माइंड. इट इज व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट टू गो हेड विथ दॅट. So the first thing, if you have a doubt, always check the hearing, because children are not necessarily having congenital hearing loss. Somebody may develop hearing loss in childhood, in mid-childhood, in early adolescence, sometimes because of a complication of medication or side effect, and you would not know that unless you get it checked. Also, ask the mother, what does she mean by this? ऐकत नाही म्हणजे नेमकं काय होतं? What does she expect? नाही डॉक्टर, तो आता शाळेतून म्हणजे आता 12 वर्षाचा झाला, आता 16 वर्षाचा झाला, आता 10वीत आहे की नाही? गेल्या वर्षापर्यंत बरोबर होतं, काही करत नाही, ऐकत नाही, काम करत नाही, घरात अभ्यास करत नाही, काही नाही. आता 10वीत आहे की नाही? आता त्याला कळलं पाहिजे का? 9वी पास झाल्यावर कोणीतरी बटन दाबलं का त्याचं, की आतली चिप चेंज केली अचानक, की उद्यापासून तो नवीन व्हर्जनमध्ये जाईल? लॅपटॉप आहे का तुमचा? पण ही प्रत्येक वडिलांची, आईवडिलांची ही कल्पना असते, आता तुला तुझी जबाबदारी कळली पाहिजे. अरे कशी कळेल? चिप आहे का आत? तुम्ही नवीन व्हर्जन अपग्रेड केलात का माझा? नाही. जी सवय आहे तीच सवय चालत राहते, अचानक चेंज कोणात येत नाही. सो दिस काइंड ऑफ एक्सपेक्टेशन्स पेरेंट्स हॅव टू बी काउन्सिल्ड, डझंट हेल्प. बट व्हॉट इज व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट इज कधीपासून आहे. इफ पेरेंट्स आर एबल टू टेल यू, वन डे ही वोक अप इन द मॉर्निंग and started behaving like this. One morning he started doing that. Previous evening he had a little bit of a headache, he went to sleep. Morning say he woke up, he is having a problem. 3 महिने झाले, पण I remember त्या दिवसापासून प्रॉब्लेम सुरू झाला. If it is so specific, then you have to think of an organic cause. If the history can be given की ह्या दिवसापासून आम्ही गेल्या वर्षी फिरायला गेलेलो ना, त्याच्यानंतर कुठेतरी झालं असं. Very important, that may not be very important to note, but this is very important. Or she was all right, पण मग ते काका लांबचे एकदा घरी राहायला आलेले, ते एक आठवडाभर आमच्याकडे होते. त्याच्यानंतर जरा मी बघितला स्वभाव चेंज झाला. मॅडम आपल्याला सकाळी एवढं छान बोलल्या, कारण सेक्शुअल एक्सप्लॉयटेशन, सेक्शुअल अब्यूज आहे, दिस इज समथिंग विच इज ऑलवेज मिस्ड. आणि तो MRIमध्ये पण सापडणार नाही, तो ऑर्गॅनिकसुद्धा नाही. सो कधीपासून सुरू झालं? द ODP, आपण जे ऑनसेट ड्युरेशन प्रोग्रेस म्हणतो, इज एक्स्ट्रीमली इम्पॉर्टंट. पण आपण काय करतो, नीट वागत नाही ना, होईल आता जरा मोठा झाला की त्याला समज येईल. वी शुड नॉट डू दॅट. अँड इट इज सो सिम्पल व्हॉट टू डू. सो इज इट वर्सनिंग ऑर बेटरिंग? ठीक आहे, पण आता सुधरत चाललं आहे का? हो, जरा मध्ये ही वॉज स्पॉइल्ड, पण आता ठीक आहे, ही इज कॅचिंग अप नाव. देन यू डोंट नीड टू वरी. नाही हो, अजून तसंच आहे, उलट आता वाढत चाललं आहे. देन यू कॅनॉट रिलॅक्स, देन यू हॅव टू टेक इट अप. व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट आहे का? तुमचं ऐकत नाही, पण नुकसान काय होतं? नुकसान काय होतं? काहीच नाही, हरकत नाही. हेल्थ. डॉक्टर, नाव शी डज नॉट ईट व्हेरी वेल. शी हॅज स्टॉप्ड ईटिंग. शी स्टार्टेड लूजिंग वेट. शी इज मोर वरीड अबाउट हर बॉडी इमेज. दिस इज गोइंग इन टू एनोरेक्सिया. सो द हेल्थ इज ॲक्च्युअली डिटिओरिएटिंग. देन यू नीड टू बी वरीड. इज दर अ प्रॉब्लेम विथ द माइंड? येस, शी इज ऑलवेज क्राईंग. शी इज अपसेट. शी डझंट वॉन्ट टू गो अँड मीट पीपल. देन यू नीड टू बी वरीड. डॉक्टर, घरातले पैसे मिस व्हायला लागलेत. तर बाबांच्या पर्समधून एक दिवशी 500 रुपये गेले, नंतर कपाटातून कोणीतरी 2000 रुपये गुल झाले, माझे एक इयरिंग्स होते ते मिळत नाही आहेत. ऑल दीज आर व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट क्लूज दॅट वी मस्ट आस्क टू द फॅमिली की असं काही घरात होतं आहे का? कारण इफ दिस इज हॅपनिंग देन इट्स समथिंग मोर सिनिस्टर. आता अदर पार्ट, डॉक्टर माझं ऐकत नाही बोललेलं. पण तुम्ही कसं सांगता त्याला? काय ऐकत नाही? तुम्ही सांगता कसं? आता त्याचे वेगळे प्रकार आहेत. काही मदर्स असतात किंवा फादर्स, ते 1 आवरली सांगत असतात, आता हे कर, आता हे कर, आता हे कर, आता ते कर. ऑब्व्हियसली द चाइल्ड इज इरिटेटेड. Others have a 1-year plan. Once a year they will tell something and expect the child to do it throughout the life, throughout the year. It doesn't work. Or in an authoritarian voice, or crying very much. मग either ते निरुपमा रॉयच असतात. You have to keep crying. अरे तू हे करत नाही, तुझं हे नाही, तुझं पुढे काय होणार, माझं पुढे काय होणार, तुझे बाबा असेच आहेत, तुझे आजोबा पण असे होते, सासरे पण असे होते. Constant there is some unhappiness going on, which tells us that the problem is with the mother. She needs help. I'm not laughing at her. I'm understanding that I need to work with her. Or it's constantly going on, how terrible he is, just like his म्हणजे सासरे बुवा, नॉट लाईक हर ओन फादर, बट अबाउट हाऊ नाईस इज सिबलिंग इज. तुझा भाऊ बघ किती छान आहे, तुझा चुलत भाऊ बघ किती छान आहे, तुझ्या वर्गातले मित्र बघ किती हुशार आहेत, तुझ्या नानाजी किती त्यांचं किती एवढं मोठं नाव होतं, अरे सचिन तेंडुलकर बघ, सचिन पिलगावकर बघ, तू असा कसा. सो दिस कॉन्स्टंट कम्पॅरिझन डझंट हेल्प ॲट ऑल. अँड इस्पेशली 4 मित्र आलेले असले घरी की सुरू करणार, अहो तो असा ऐकतच नाही, ह्याला सांगा ना तुम्ही, तो जेवतच नाही वेळेवर. It's such an insulting thing to be told this in front of your 2 or 3 college school friends, especially if you are a boy and one of those friends is a girl. It's very embarrassing because tomorrow the whole school will come to know that ह्याची आई असं असं बोलत होती. Or about making 5 yearly plans. आपल्याला आता 12वीचा अभ्यास सुरू केला पाहिजे. कधी बोलतात ते 8वीत. So it doesn't make sense to the child because he can't think so far. अँड फायनली जेवताना एव्हरीबडीचं एक मूड येतो, आत्ताच बोललं पाहिजे, तू असं वागलाच नाही ना तर तुझी वाट लागणार आहे. म्हणजे जेवताना जेवण आटपायच्या अगोदरच जगात काय काय वाईट होऊ शकतं कोविडच्या पण पुढे हे त्याच वेळेला सांगितलं पाहिजे, बिफोर इवन इट्स इज डिनर. सांगायचा मुद्दा गमतीचा भाग सोडला तर दिस इज व्हेरी व्हेरी रिअलिस्टिक अँड दिस हॅपन्स इन एव्हरी हाऊस. अँड दिस इज द कॉज ऑफ द प्रॉब्लेम व्हेरी ऑफन बिकॉज दिस इज ट्रोमा. यू डोंट हॅव टू बी कॉट इन अन earthquake somewhere, or you don't have to have had sexual molestation to get upset. Even this, if it goes on and on and on, for a child, especially an adolescent, it can cause a lot of problems. And hence, I'm not going to speak later about management of developmental disorders in adolescents. No. This is it. Counsel the parent if this is happening. And very often it is the father or the mother herself who is herself depressed. Because she hasn't had a great marriage, she hasn't had a great childhood herself, she hasn't been treated well by the mother-in-law, father-in-law, she has had to give up her job because husband told her की नाही तुला घरात राहूनच मुलं सांभाळायला पाहिजे, माझं करिअर इम्पॉर्टंट आहे. Or she is not being given good respect in her own workplace. There could be many reasons. Don't ignore it. And rather than working with her, don't send this child for an MRI or some psychiatric evaluations or psychological tests. कारण त्यातनं काहीच सॉल्व होणार नाही. It's very important just to talk to that mother. Sometimes just that talking to that parent and that jadoo ki jhappi helps. Finally, who does a child listen to? तुमचं ऐकत नाही, बाबा कोणाचं ऐकतो? आई म्हणते माझं ऐकत नाही, कोणाचं ऐकतो? मित्रांचं ऐकतो, सर्व करतो मित्रांसारखं. Now what would you say? Is this a problem? Abnormal? If an adolescent doesn't listen to his peers, who will listen? We don't listen. We are all bosses. So we want to do what we want. But a child who's an adolescent will listen to other adolescents. That's completely normal. So if she tells you, माझं ऐकत नाही, पण वर्गातल्या मुलांचं सर्व ऐकतो, परफेक्ट. एक्सप्लेन टू हर दॅट दॅट इज नॉर्मल. सोशल मीडियाचंच ऐकतो, कोणाचंच ऐकत नाही, मित्रांचा पण नाही वाजत नाही, पण ते रात्री 2 वाजता काहीतरी यूट्यूबचा व्हिडिओ लॉन्च होतो, ते बघतो आणि उद्यापासून नेक्स्ट डेपासून तसंच वागतो. नाव दिस इज व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट फॉर अस टू नो दॅट सोशल मीडिया हॅज स्टार्टेड इन्फ्लुएन्सिंग आवर लाईव्स much more than our parents could, our teachers could, Chacha Nehru could, or anybody else could. Social media. So this can lead to a problem. So always ask, what is the child watching? How long is he watching? Madam again told us very important some aspects about what happens on the net. But there are some children who may tell the mother may tell you that he hears aliens talking to him. किंवा त्याला देवाचाच आवाज कानात येतो, बाजूला शेजारी देव उभे आहेत आणि बोलतायत असं ऐकू येतं. असं जर त्याला ऐकायला येत असेल तर अगेन यू हॅव टू इमिजिएटली रेफर हिम टू अ सायकॅट्रिस्ट बिकॉज दिस इज अगेन नॉट ऑर्गॅनिक बट दिस इज अ सिरियस इश्यू बिकॉज दिस इज अ हॅल्युसिनेशन ऑर अ डेल्युजन. इफ यू आर हॅव्हिंग हॅल्युसिनेशन्स ऑर डेल्युजन्स देन यू नीड टू बी सीन बाय अ सायकॅट्रिस्ट इमिजिएटली. इज दिस क्लिअर सो फार? नाउ गोईंग अहेड, ही डज नॉट लिसन टू एनी वन एल्स आयदर. कोणाचंच ऐकत नाही, नाहीदर आईचं म्हणजे माझं ऐकतच नाही, पण शाळेतल्या टीचरचं पण ऐकत नाही, मित्रांचं पण ऐकत नाही. Now this is interesting. Now look at the history. This has been going on forever. लहानपणापासूनच कोणाचं ऐकत नाही. इनफॅक्ट तो बोलत पण नव्हता, पण त्याला ना आम्ही खूप स्पीच थेरपी केली, त्याच्यानंतर तो बोलायला लागला 5-6 वर्षानंतर. कमीच बोलतो अजूनही, मोजकंच बोलतो. जनरली अभ्यासाचं चांगलं बोलतो, शार्क्सचे नावं माहीत आहेत त्याला, डायनॉसॉर्सची नावं माहीत आहेत, ज्या गोष्टीचा जास्त काही उपयोग नसेल त्या गोष्टी सर्व माहिती आहेत, पण जास्त अदरवाईज बोलत नाही. He does not like spending time with peers. Now, if an adolescent doesn't like spending time with peers, this is an issue. He has no friends. This is an even bigger issue. He sits alone in the class and in the school bus. He does not like spending time with family and relatives. Kaki noko, maushi noko, mami noko, atya noko. But he prefers to solve 1,000-piece puzzle or watch YouTube all the time. Now, when you have a story like this, the mother will tell you, हो पण तो genius आहे. Genius आहे. तुम्ही कुठलाही 1,000-piece puzzle द्या त्याला कुठल्याही शार्कच्या फॅमिलीचं नाव विचारा, डायनोसॉरचं नाव विचारा, तो की नाही जिनियस आहे. त्याला काकी मावशी आत्याकडे कशाला जायचं, वेस्ट ऑफ टाईम, तो जिनियस आहे. रियालिटी इज अदरवाईज. अँड दिस आय एम टेलिंग यू बिकॉज आय सी 1 or 2 चिल्ड्रन लाईक दिस एव्हरी वीक. एव्हरी वीक आय सी 1 or 2 चिल्ड्रन विथ मिस्ड ऑटिझम. कारण आपल्याला ऑटिझम वाटतं म्हणजे वेड्यासारख्या उड्या मारतोय तोच ऑटिस्टिक, अजिबात बोलत नसेल तोच ऑटिस्टिक, 4 माणसात गेला की आरडाओरडा करतो तो ऑटिस्टिक. नाही, दिस इज मिस्ड ऑटिझम. ऑटिझम मराठीत सांगायचं म्हणजे अति वस्तुमग्नता, अति पॅटर्न मग्नता आणि कमी मनुष्य मग्नता. जी व्यक्ती मनुष्यात कमी मग्न असते, इतर मनुष्यात कुठे मनुष्य कसे वागतात, कुठे आपण कोणाशी कसं वागावं आणि कुठे आपण कोणाशी तसं वागू नये, हे ज्याला कळत नाही, देअर यू सस्पेक्ट ऑटिझम. अँड दिस इज समथिंग विच हॅज बीन मिस्ड. का? कारण अभ्यासात एकदम हुशार होता. का? कारण अभ्यास हा पॅटर्न असतो. ABCDच असते, 1+1 2च असतं. न्यूटन्स फॉर्म्युलाच असतो. दिस इज अ पॅटर्न. सो सम चिल्ड्रन आर व्हेरी व्हेरी गुड इन मगिंग अप पॅटर्न्स. पण काकीकडे जायचं किंवा मावशीकडे जायचं त्यांना आवडत नाही. का? कारण काकी थोडीशी वेगळी आहे, मावशी थोडीशी वेगळी आहे. काकीकडे मुलाला वेगळं वागावं लागतं, मावशीकडे मुलाला वेगळं वागायला लागतं. त्याला वेगळेपणा आवडत नाही, त्याला पॅटर्न आवडतो. आता हे थोडंफार आपल्या सर्वांनाच होतं. पण एवढं की 10 वर्षात काकीकडे एकदासुद्धा गेला नाही, मामीकडे गेला तर आज जायला मागत नाही, 2 मिनटं बसला नाही की लगेच उठतो घरी जातो. दिस इज अ प्रॉब्लेम. हो, पण हाच मुलगा तुम्ही त्याला पझल्स द्या, 1,000-piece पझल तो लगेच 10 मिनटात सॉल्व्ह करतो. सो दिस शुड मेक यू लुक ॲट द फॅक्ट दॅट देर इज समथिंग abnormal going on with this child. And it is not the first scenario we discussed, कि it's only the mother or the father or the environment at home causing this. This is something deeper than that. And what will you do? Of course, check for vision and hearing for all these children. Now, there is something which we have devised as SRK sign. It may not be in adolescents, but for autism, one simple thing you can do with a 3-year-old child, 4-year-old child is a SRK sign. What is SRK sign? Come on, so many youngsters. Achha, good. I'm seeing the seniors are also aware about it. Yes, can you please stand up? Can you? Yeah. Please demonstrate to the juniors what is SRK sign. Yeah. So what is this? This is in American jargon called emotional social reciprocity. एवढे शब्द ऐकल्यावर वाटतं आपल्यालाच ऑटिझम आहे का? इमोशनल सोशल रेसिप्रॉसिटी म्हणजे अगदी 9-10 महिन्याच्या नंतर, वयाच्या नंतर मुलाला जर आईने असं केलं तर ते मूल धावत येऊन असं आईला मिठी मारली पाहिजे. बाबाने असं केलं तर धावत मूल बाबांच्या कडेवर उडी मारली पाहिजे. म्हणजे बाबा मला हात पुढे करतायत, प्रेमाचा हात मला मिठी मारायला, हे त्या मुलाला कळलं पाहिजे. आणि हे सोशल बिहेवियर मुलाला जर कळलं, इमोशनल सोशल बिहेवियर कळलं, ही रेसिप्रोकेट्स इट बाय रनिंग टू द फादर अँड हगिंग द फादर. ह्याला म्हणतात सोशल इमोशनल रेसिप्रोसिटी. किती अवघड. आपण शाहरुख खान साईन लक्षात ठेवूया. हे नॉर्मल आहे, 9-10 महिन्यानंतर होतं. ज्या मुलांना हे दिसत नाही, 4 वर्षाचं मूल नाही, डॉक्टर तो कधीच माझ्याकडे येत नाही, मी कधी त्याला असं पुढे प्रेमाचं कधीच माझ्याकडे तो रेसिप्रोकेट करत नाही, कीप दॅट इन माइंड. And suspect autism, counsel the parents. This you need to refer to a developmental pediatrician, medications monitor वगैरे. There is a video on YouTube. If you just Google by the name, my name with Dr. Lodha, you will get this video. It's free, of course. You can just watch it for a longer, and it's a 1 hour long video. So I'll show you the link later. Scenario 3, आता this mother says कि my child is aggressive. Same child, referred by the school counselor. What is exactly wrong? Mother says he is very aggressive. काय ॲग्रेसिव्ह म्हणजे नेमकं काय करतो? आई म्हणेल, त्याला मी एकदा जरी काही बोलले ना डॉक्टर, असे डोळे करतो, असं बघतो, मला एवढा ॲग्रेसिव्ह आहे. वडिलांना विचारलं, अग्रेसिव्ह म्हणजे खूप अग्रेसिव्ह आहे हो, काय ॲग्रेसिव्ह म्हणजे काय करतो नेमकं? अहो मी त्याला 2 वेळा बोललो, 4 वेळा बोललो, बघतसुद्धा नाही माझ्याकडे, खालीच बघत असतो पुस्तकात किंवा मोबाईलमध्ये. मी बोलतोय, मी वडील त्याचा, मी पैसे कमवतो, त्याला शाळेत पाठवतो, कॉलेजला पाठवतो, सारखा पाठी हसायला लागली बरीचशी माणसं, सारखा बोलतो, तो बघतसुद्धा नाही माझ्याकडे. दॅट इज अग्रेसिव्ह अकॉर्डिंग टू द फादर, दॅट इज अग्रेशन अकॉर्डिंग टू द फादर. बट यू नीड टू आस्क, बोथ ऑफ these behaviors are perfectly normal. If my mother is telling me to do something which I don't like, I will also look at her angrily. If my father is telling me to do something which I know I will never do or I will not accept, then rather than shouting at him, because he can shout more at me, I look down in my book. This is normal behavior. So what was the nature of aggression? Yes, he went and took a pencil and stabbed some child. You need to ask, कोणाला शाळेत मार लागला, काय नेमकं झालं? नाही, तो चाललेला कोणतरी असे पाठी हसता असताना त्याने असं केलं. That is not a problem. That is not aggression. But some child was sitting, he goes there and takes a pen or something like this आणि मुद्दामच हे केलं, so that that child cries and then he feels happy with it. This is abnormal. You don't need an MRI for this. You need to ask the child, what was the provocation? असं त्याने केलं, पण काल त्याच मुलाने त्याला आई-वडिलांच्या शिव्या दिलेल्या. म्हणून त्याने जाऊन आज हे केलं. Now is that abnormal? Now is that abnormal? No, I mean we can condone it. It's not a psychiatric disorder. If somebody, I mean, I don't know how many of you know, but in one of the World Cups, one of the top football players, the captain of France, Zinedine Zidane, was sent off because he headbutted somebody else and France lost the World Cup. Agdi 5 minutes urleli. Then later on came to know that he was very possessive about his sister who was adopted or something, and that man had said, the other footballer had said something about his sister. And this guy who was the captain of France, the best footballer of that era, he just lost his head and he headbutted that fellow. Would you call him a psychiatric patient? No, it happens in the heat of the moment. How you deal with that child is different from the child who had no provocation, went and stabbed somebody and then started laughing. So these are two different conditions. And that's why the typical thing like, was the onset sudden? This aggressive behavior did start overnight, did start one morning suddenly. Was it gradual? If it is not too long, you also have to keep in mind a space-occupying lesion. We have an ENT surgeon here, he can tell us that brain tumors can present this way. But if it is since early childhood and has gone on for 10 years, it's not likely to be a brain tumor. But if it has since the last few years, gradually, 8 varsha, 9 varsha, 10 varsha, then that is part of normal adolescence also. And progress, like I said, is it getting worse or better? Now, this is very important, that he was a calm child, suddenly began to have outbursts in the past 6 months. And this has worsened. Ata he kalte ka? Have I made the point clear? What will you do for this? He was a calm child earlier, you have asked. Mother didn't tell you. That's why you need to ask. अगोदर कसा होता? 6 महिन्यापूर्वी शांत होता माझं मूल. इतर म्हणायचं की किती शांत आहे मूल तुझं. आता अचानक हे करतो, shouts, behaves aggressively, throws the plates. This is something you have to be very clear that you have to have a thorough examination, rule out serious neurometabolic disorder, disease, social depredation or deprivation, rule out abuse, addiction and poisoning. This is a sinister case. Don't miss this. And how do you know? Only by history. This child you cannot refer and say, अरे काय नाही, आम्ही ते लेक्चर ऐकलेलं ना, मुलं अशीच वागतात, काही करू नका. No, I am not saying that. And hence, we need to counsel parents की ह्या मुलाला ना, आपण अचानक जे चेंज होतात ना, हे असं स्वभावात दोष आपण म्हणू शकत नाही. आपल्याला रूल आउट केलं पाहिजे. काहीतरी न्यूरोलॉजिकल प्रॉब्लेम असू शकतो. The other common problem is substance abuse in this age. This can cause problems like that, addictions. And hence, this you need to look into rehabilitation, medications and monitor. आता ह्याच्या विपरीत बघा. He was never a calm child. Always hyperactive and impulsive. Never calm. अगदी लहानपणापासून तो कोणाच्या घरी गेला तर तोडफोड करायचाच. काकी म्हणायची बाबा माझ्याकडे पाठवू नको. डॉक्टरांकडे गेलो ना तर डॉक्टर म्हणायचे तुम्ही एक काम करा, तुमचा नंबर आला नाही की आम्ही तुम्हाला फोन करू, तुम्ही बाहेर थांबा. कारण तो क्लिनिकमध्ये डॉक्टरच्या सर्व ट्रॉफीज वगैरे आता देतात ना आम्हाला, ते तो तोडतो. डॉक्टर म्हणतात तू बाहेर थांब. इफ यू हॅव दिस हिस्ट्री, व्हॉट विल यू आस्क? यू विल आस्क, हे वाढत चाललंय का? हो. पूर्वी फक्त घरातच करायचा, नंतर काकी मावशीकडे करायला लागला, शेजारी करायला लागला, शाळेत करायला लागला, आता अगदी प्रिन्सिपलकडे असा वागतो. स्टार्टेड शोईंग रेजिस्टन्स टू फॉलोइंग इन्स्ट्रक्शन्स, ब्रेकिंग रूल्स, नाव स्टार्टेड गेटिंग इन टू फाईट्स विथ पियर्स. फ्रॉम पियर्स नाव ही स्टार्ट गेटिंग इन टू फाईट विथ टीचर्स ऑल्सो. नाव द फ्रेंड सर्कल हॅज चेंज ओव्हर द इयर्स. नाव ऑल दी अदर चिल्ड्रन हू आर लाईक दिस, ऑल दी आउटस्टँडिंग स्टुडंट्स, म्हणजे क्लासच्या बाहेर पनिश्ड असतात, दे हॅव बिकम अँड फॉर्म देअर गँग. आता इंटरेस्टिंग गोष्ट, अकॅडमिकली ही वॉज गुड इनिशियली. आता बिहेवियर वाढायला लागल्यानंतर हिज अकॅडमिक्स हॅज स्टार्टेड. सो ही डझंट हॅव लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी. तो वर्गाच्या बाहेर आहे, त्याला कळणार कसं वर्गाच्या आत काय शिकवत आहेत. सो द अकॅडमिक्स हॅज स्टार्टेड फॉलिंग बिकॉज ऑफ द बिहेवियरल प्रॉब्लेम. हे कळतंय का? सो द बिहेवियरल प्रॉब्लेम स्टार्टेड फर्स्ट, अकॅडमिक वॉज अ कॉन्सिक्वेन्स. अ गर्ल इन द क्लास टोल्ड हर फ्रेंड्स that he asked her to accompany him after school for lunch. He asked for a date basically. And she saw him smoking as well. मग जाऊन सर्वांना कुसबूस तो ना असं असं करतो. This is basically a problem. दिस इज कॉल्ड, आय कॉल इट अ रोड टू पर्डिशन. खूप छान सिनेमा आहे तो, पहा तुम्ही कधी. पण दिस इज टिपिकली वॉट वी हॅव टू डू इज, अगेन विजन अँड हिअरिंग. दिस आय कॉल इट पुअर सेल्फ रेग्युलेशन स्किल्स. तुम्ही ADHD म्हटलं असणार सर्वांनी, की हे टिपिकल ADHD मुलं आहे, अटेन्शन डेफिसिट हायपर ॲक्टिव्ह इम्पल्सिव्ह चाइल्ड. मी म्हणतो की हे पुअर सेल्फ रेग्युलेशन आहे. मस्ती सर्वच मुलं करतात, शांत कोणच नेहमी बसलेलं नसतं. माझ्याकडे पालक आले की नाही तो खूप हायपर ॲक्टिव्ह आहे, मी त्यांना उदाहरण देतो. फुटबॉल खेळणारा जो असेल तो असा बसतो का मिडफिल्डमध्ये? आज माझी मॅच आहे, गेलो, बूटवीट घातले, मॅच सुरू झाली, शांत. नॉर्मल आहे का? नॉर्मल आहे का असं फुटबॉल खेळणं? त्याला काय करायला पाहिजे फुटबॉल खेळताना? तो धावला पाहिजे. तुम्हाला माहीत आहे की मॅक्झिमम त्यांचं टायमिंग केलं जातं की किती माईल्स तुम्ही धावलात एक फुटबॉल मॅचमध्ये. यू हॅव टू कॉन्स्टंटली रन बिकॉज दॅट इज युअर जॉब. ते तुम्हाला कळलं पाहिजे की इथे एव्हरीबडी एल्स एक्सपेक्ट्स मी टू रन अँड प्ले फुटबॉल. गेम संपल्यावर क्लास वर्गात गेले, कॉलेज सुरू झालं, वर्गात गेल्यानंतर काय केलं पाहिजे? तसाच धावला पाहिजे का? मग तो काय करतो? कोणी नॉर्मल असेल काय करेल? तो शांत बसेल. अहो पण तिकडे फुटबॉल फील्डवर धावत होता म्हणून तो हायपर ॲक्टिव्ह झाला का? नाही. धावणे, पळणे, चंचलपणा दाखवणे इज नॉट अ प्रॉब्लेम. हे लक्षात घ्या, तुम्हाला सरप्रायझिंग वाटेल, इज नॉट अ प्रॉब्लेम. कुठे चंचलता दाखवली पाहिजे, कुठे चपळता दाखवली पाहिजे आणि कुठे दाखवली पाहिजे नाही, हे जर कळत नसेल तर ऑटिझम, कळून वळत नसेल आणि कंट्रोल होत नसेल तर ADHD. हे कळतंय का? सोपं आहे. म्हणजे कळतंय की इकडे शांत बसलं पाहिजे पण त्याला जमतच नाही, तो वर्गात पण धावतोय. दॅट इज हायपर ॲक्टिव्हिटी ऑफ ADHD. पण कोण कसं वागतं हेच जर कळत नसेल, दॅट इज मोर लाईक अन ऑटिझम. आता आपण हे उदाहरण दिलं फुटबॉलरचं, तुम्ही हो म्हटलं सर्वांनी की मॅक्झिमम जो धावतो तो बेस्ट फुटबॉलर, करेक्ट? हो म्हटलं ना तुम्ही. गोलकीपर असं करतो का? गोलकीपर असं करतो का? गोलकीपर धावला तर वाट लागेल टीमची. गोलकीपरला उभं राहायचं असतं. एकदा सकाळी मॅचला गेल्यावर तुमचा कोच सांगतो, ए ऐक, आज तू मिडफिल्ड खेळू नको किंवा फॉरवर्ड खेळू नको, आज आपला गोलकीपर आला नाही आहे, तू आज गोलकीपर आजच्या दिवशी. आणि तो मिडफिल्डर धावायला तयारी आलेला एक्सपर्ट, तो काय करतो, ठीक आहे बाबा आज मी गोलकीपर, मी उभा राहतो इकडे. आणि एखाद्या वेळी 2 गोलकीपर असतात, त्याला सांगितलं अरे तो इंजर्ड झाला आहे, तू जाऊन फॉरवर्ड म्हणून खेळ, त्याला ताबडतोब धावायला लागतं, पळायला लागतं. हे त्या मुलाला कसं कळतं? त्याचं पण काय चिप आहे का? नाही. आपल्या भोवती जे लोक आहेत ते आपल्याकडून काय एक्सपेक्ट करतायत हे पिकअप करावं लागतं, जे ऑटिझममध्ये होत नाही. आणि पिकअप केल्यानंतर वळत नाही, कळतं की शांत बसायचं आहे पण नाही जमत आहे, दॅट इज ADHD. सो बेसिकली कॉल इट पुअर सेल्फ रेग्युलेशन. आणि दिस विल टेल यू द डिफरन्स बिटवीन ADHD अँड ऑटिझम. काउन्सल पेरेंट्स अँड वेन यू ट्रीट दीज चिल्ड्रन, गिव्ह स्मॉल गोल्स. स्मार्ट गोल्स तुम्ही जर गुगल केलं तर तुम्हाला ते दिसेल. दॅट इज अन ॲक्रोनिम. एनीबडी नोज वॉट द ॲक्रोनिम इज फॉर स्मार्ट गोल्स? Specific, measurable, attainable, yes, realistic and time bound. So if we have to make this child sit quietly in the classroom, you can't say की 1 तास शांत बसून दाखव. फर्स्ट फाइंड आउट किती वेळ शांत बसतो. 3 मिनटं तो बसू शकतो. त्याची कॅपॅसिटी कितीची आहे? 3 मिनटं. युअर टार्गेट और गोल शुड बी 5 मिनटं. इट कॅनॉट बी 50 मिनटं. जर मूल स्विमिंग पूलमध्ये जमत नसेल पोहायला, त्याला तुम्ही समुद्रात टाकू शकत नाही. त्याला पहिले स्विमिंग पूलमध्ये जमू दे, स्विमिंग पूलनंतर मोठ्या स्विमिंग पूलमध्ये, मग छोट्या तळ्यात, मोठ्या तळ्यात, छोट्या नदीत, मोठ्या नदीत, मग समुद्रात. ह्याला काय म्हणतो आपण? कपॅसिटी बिल्डिंग. ग्रॅज्युअली कपॅसिटी बिल्डअप होते. जर आपण असं वागलो ह्या मुलांकडे तर त्यांच्या सेल्फ रेग्युलेशनची कपॅसिटी वाढू शकते. त्याला औषधांची गरज नाही. किंबहुना हे न करताना औषधं दिलीत तर तो सुन्न राहील काही वेळ, औषध उतरलं की परत तेच करेल. त्याची कपॅसिटी वाढलेली नाही औषधाने, ही आपल्याला वाढावी लागते बाय हॅव्हिंग दीज गोल्स. ऑफकोर्स रिवॉर्ड्स अँड कॉन्सिक्वेन्सेस वी ऑल अंडरस्टँड. नाव द लास्ट सिनारिओ, मदर थिंग्स ही डज नॉट स्टडी इनफ. अभ्यासच नाही करत व्यवस्थित. नाव स्ट्रिक्टली स्पीकिंग दिस नॉट इवन अ बिहेवियरल प्रॉब्लेम. पण आपल्या देशात आणि एशिया खंडात दिस इज द बिगेस्ट बिहेवियरल प्रॉब्लेम. आता व्हॉट आर द ॲक्च्युअल मार्क्स ही गेट्स. तो माझा मुलं एकदम अजिबात अभ्यास करत नाही, असं मग आपण लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटीच्या टेस्ट करूया, MRI करूया वगैरे वगैरे. मग किती मार्क मिळाले हो त्याला? 97 मिळाले हो. 97? हो. मग तुम्ही रडताय का? नाही, गेल्या वेळी 99 मिळालेले. सो बी व्हेरी शुअर अँड दिस आर रियालिटीज. This is not an exaggeration. You will find patients like this. What are the hours in माझ्या समोर अजिबात अभ्यास करत नाही. आपण मार्क कसे चांगले येतात? तो आय डोंट नो माझ्या पाठी काय करतो. मग पाठ करून बसा तुम्ही त्याला. तुमच्या पाठी चांगला अभ्यास होत असेल त्याचा. मार्क येत आहेत ना चांगले. डोंट बॉदर. तुमच्या समोरच बसून असाच बस, मांडी घालूनच बस, उजेड असेल तिकडेच बस. This is all not necessary for an adolescent. Does he get up often? No, he can't sit in one place, gets up every 5-10 minutes. So it's unlikely to be a prostate problem at this age. So it's more likely to be a attention deficit problem. How many hours of school, tuition and travel? म्हणजे सकाळी तो मूल बिचारा 6 वाजता 5 वाजता वगैरे उठतो. 6ला बस, म्हणजे मुंबईमध्ये तरी असं असतं, ती 1 तास बस जाते 10 लोकांना पिकअप करत करत. मग तो 7 वाजता शाळेत पोचतो. 7 ते 1-1:30 वाजेपर्यंत शाळा असते. त्याच्यानंतर तो तिकडेच जेवतो काहीतरी, मग ट्युशनला जातो. ट्युशनच्या नंतर अजून कोणाकडे तरी संध्याकाळी 4 वाजता जातो ट्युशनचा होमवर्क करायला, शाळेचा होमवर्क करायला. करत करत तो रात्री घरी 8 वाजता येतो. तोपर्यंत आई 7:45ला घरी आलेली असते. स्वयंपाक करत करत असताना मला अभ्यास काय केलास सांग. हू कॅन टॉलरेट दिस? हू कॅन टॉलरेट दिस? And then if he doesn't sit in front of that mother from 8:30 to 9:30, then he is brought to a developmental pediatrician or a psychologist ki abnormal hai. He is not abnormal. You have made his life abnormal. Nobody can behave or deal with this kind of behavior. So finally, there are 4 scenarios that you have to see. This child who is not doing well in his studies is unable to keep up with his peers socially, at play, at academics. So he is bad at academics. What about social behavior? No, he can't get along with his peers. Does he understand how to adapt to different situations? No. He is a little slow. He needs repeated instructions. And त्याला 1:1 घेऊन बसलात की इज एबल टू डू बेटर. आणि मेडिकल हिस्ट्रीमध्ये काहीच म्हणजे बर्थ हिस्ट्री वॉज नॉट बॅड, ही डिडंट हॅव मेनिंजायटिस, नथिंग लाईक दॅट. इन दिस केस वॉट यू विल डू इज अगेन यू विल नोट दॅट ही हॅज पुअर अडॅप्टिव्ह स्किल्स. म्हणजे त्याला जे शिकायला खूप वेळ लागतो आणि शिकलेलं कुठे अडॅप्ट करायला जमत नाही. यू विल सस्पेक्ट इंटेलेक्च्युअल डिसेबिलिटी. ह्याला पूर्वी आपण MR म्हणायचो, तर MR म्हणू नये, वाईट शब्द येतो. इंटेलेक्च्युअल डिसेबिलिटी म्हणजे प्रोसेसरच स्लो आहे, म्हणून त्याला रिपिटिशन लागतं. एक गोष्ट इथे शिकली असेल तर ती अडॅप्ट करता येत नाही. पालकांना काउन्सिल केलं पाहिजे की ही कॅनॉट परफॉर्म लाईक दी अदर चाइल्ड हुज IQ इज 125. डोंट एक्सपेक्ट हिम टू. दिस नीड्स टू बी टोल्ड टू द पेरेंट्स. अँड ट्रीटमेंट इज द सेम ॲज वॉट वी सेड. आधी मुलाला स्विमिंग पूलमध्ये पोहायला शिकवा. त्याच्यानंतर यू फ्रॉम अ स्विमिंग पूल यू पुट टू अ स्मॉल पॉन्ड, देन अ बिग पॉन्ड, देन अ स्मॉल रिव्हर, अ बिग रिव्हर. अशा मुलांना मी सांगतो त्याला 8वीचं वाचता येत नाही ना, ठीक आहे, तुम्ही 7वीचं पुस्तक द्या, ते पण नाही येत. अच्छा, सम पीपल कॅन रीड बट त्यांना अर्थ कळत नाही. सो आय टेल देम, हे वाक्य वाच, इंग्रजीत मोठ्याने वाच आणि मला मराठीत अर्थ सांग त्याचा. ही कांट डू दॅट फॉर 7th. देन यू गिव्ह हिम अ 6th स्टँडर्ड बुक, ते पण जमत नाही. 5वीचं द्या. समटाईम्स विल गेट शॉक्ड दॅट त्याला 2रीचं पुस्तकसुद्धा वाचता येत नाही, कारण ते तो शिकला नाही. पण बसतोय कुठल्या वर्गात? सकाळ संध्याकाळी तुम्हाला स्टोरी सांगितली 6 वाजल्यापासून रात्री 8 वाजेपर्यंत. कुठल्या परिसरात आहे तो? 8वीच्या परिसरात आहे. त्याला 2रीचं नीट कळतं आहे, फक्त 3रीचं कळत नाही. 8वीचं म्हणजे तो त्या 12 तासात टॉर्चर आहेच आणि त्याला काहीच कळत नाही त्या 12 तासात. त्याच्या सेल्फ कॉन्फिडन्सचं काय वाट लागते लक्षात येतं का? त्याचा सेल्फ कॉन्फिडन्स किती बॅड आहे कळतं का तुम्हाला? नोबडी इज पेइंग एनी अटेन्शन टू हिम, दे आर ओनली लाफिंग ॲट हिम. दिस इज अ चाइल्ड हू इज लाईकली टू बी डिप्रेस्ड, नॉट बिकॉज ऑफ द मेडिकल इलनेस ऑफ डिप्रेशन सिच्युएशन. So please be very clear that you need to explain this to the parents. So this is a story of a child. He came to us at 8 years old. He had been seen by 10 pediatricians, 10 psychologists, 10 therapists, remedial education, shadow teacher, whatever. Everywhere he went, he was not able to do well. When he came to us, we just took the history. He had global developmental delay. Motor milestones were also late, speech was also late, social milestones were also late, and his education was also late. Then we asked history in the mother. She had a bad obstetric history. We have some top gynecologists here. She had repeated abortions. Then she said her sister had a similar history. It's very obvious when you look at the child then that you will test for something like Fragile X, and it is missed so often. And the same way you have to treat the child by explaining to the parents that don't expect him to run at the same speed as others are running. But when you start him on an individual program where you start at the level at which the child is, gradually the child is able to pick it up. So understand that. This is another child similar to the previous child, but there is a difference. He has a classic history of global developmental delay. He had difficulty in motor development as well. Walking was also bad. He was not able to use his hand for writing. he had a bad perinatal history, he had history of seizures at birth, dysmorphic features. Now this is a different child. As you can understand, this is a child with birth asphyxia, with cerebral palsy. This is a child for whom you will require EEG and MRI. Why am I saying this? Why am I saying this? Because for none of the other children you needed an EEG or an MRI. None. You are either wasting your government resources or you are making them spend money for whatever purpose. Only this child needs all these evaluations and he needs to be referred to a pediatric neurologist probably. Scenario 4C. This child is good at day-to-day aspects of life. Good socially, intellectually. So academically is poor, पण काकीकडे व्यवस्थित जातो, मावशीकडे व्यवस्थित वागतो, मावशीला आवडतो, काकीला आवडतो, काकीच्या शेजाऱ्यांना तो आवडतो, वर्गातल्या सर्व मुलांना आवडतो, सर्वांना हेल्पफुल आहे. फक्त अभ्यासात मार्क कमी येतात. नो बर्थ हिस्ट्री, नो डेव्हलपमेंटल डिले, नो डिस्मॉर्फॉलॉजी, ऑल एक्झामिनेशन नॉर्मल. ओनली सम कन्फ्युजन विथ राईट अँड लेफ्ट साईड्स, अबव अँड बिलो, सम कन्फ्युजन विथ स्पोकन लँग्वेज, आस्कला आक्स म्हणणार, राईट पायात डावी स्लीपर घालणार, राईट लेफ्ट कन्फ्युजन होणार. अल्फाबेट्स कळायलाच अवघड होत होतं. मग टू अल्फाबेट PATला TAP बोलायचा, पॅटला टॅप बोलायचा वगैरे वगैरे. आणि त्याचं आता अनफॉर्च्युनेटली आय डोंट नो वेदर वी कॅन सी, पण त्याचं रायटिंग सॅम्पल पाहिलं आपण तर त्याच्यात यू विल गेट व्हेरियस सच काइंड ऑफ एरर्स विच आर अगेन अ पॅटर्न. पंक्च्युएशनच बरोबर नसेल, एखादा अक्षरच गाळलं असेल त्याला आपण ओमिशन म्हणतो, कधी एक एक्स्ट्रा लिहिलं असेल म्हणजे बिल वर्ड असेल तर BILLच्या ऐवजी BILL लिहिलं असेल. So all these errors if you see in all the books, then this is that तारे जमीन पर चा बच्चू. तर हिस्ट्री बुकमध्ये पण तसंच आहे, जॉग्रफीमध्ये पण तसंच आहे, मॅथ्समध्ये पण आहे, इंग्लिश नोटबुकमध्ये पण आहे, मराठीत पण तसं आहे. जर असं असेल देन यू विल थिंक इन टर्म्स ऑफ अ स्पेसिफिक लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटी. आणि ह्या मुलांना अगेन विजन हिअरिंग, अगेन नो इन्व्हेस्टिगेशन्स. दिस चाइल्ड विल रिक्वायर, आपण जे गव्हर्नमेंट हॉस्पिटलकडून जो दाखला येतो लर्निंग डिसेबिलिटीचा, डिस्लेक्सियाचा, तो देऊन त्याचं मॅनेजमेंट थोडंसं वेगळं असेल. सो बेसिकली व्हॉट विल वी डू ॲज डॉक्टर्स, हे सर्व शब्द आपल्याकडे येत असतात. पालकांना टीचर सांगत असतात शाळेत की तुमचं मूल हायपर ॲक्टिव्ह आहे, त्याला स्पीच डिले आहे, त्याला बिहेवियरच बरोबर नाही, लर्निंग डिफिकल्टी आहे. मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टंट, डोंट जम्प फॉर अ डायग्नोसिस. तर सिम्पल अप्रोच, हिस्ट्री घ्या. आपण सर्व हे डिस्कस केलं आहे. कोणाला हवं असेल तर तुम्ही फोटो घेऊ शकता. पण गो थ्रू दिस स्टेप बाय स्टेप. मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टंट, शाळेच्याबद्दल विचारत असताना अकॅडमिक्सच्या बद्दल लास्ट विचारा. तुम्ही Fमध्ये बघत असाल की पहिले बिहेवियरच्या बद्दल विचारा. बिहेवियर व्यवस्थित आहे का? जर वागायचं कसं कुठे कळत असेल तरच बोलायचं कुठे कसं कळेल, आणि तरच कुठे काय लिहायचं नाही लिहायचं ते कळेल. हा सिक्वेन्स आहे. जर मुलाला वागता येत नाही, बोलता येत नाही, तर त्याला रीडिंग रायटिंग जमू शकणार नाही अनलेस ही इज ऑटिस्टिक आणि इज जस्ट कॉपिंग द पॅटर्न्स. सो जस्ट कीप दीज थिंग्स इन माइंड. The message is explore each symptom in such detail. Hyperactivity is a symptom, it's not a diagnosis. Bad behavior is a symptom. Explore it. त्याचा ODP काढा, त्याचे डिटेल्स काढा आणि एकाबरोबर एक सिम्पटम्स कुठले कुठले आहेत ते लिंक करा. हायपर ॲक्टिव्हिटी विथ स्पीच डिले विथ रेपिटेटिव्ह बिहेवियर, ऑटिझम. हायपर ॲक्टिव्हिटी, नो स्पीच डिले, नो रेपिटेटिव्ह बिहेवियर, गुड इन अंडरस्टँडिंग बट रनिंग अराउंड ऑल द टाइम, ADHD. This is the way you will be able to come to a diagnosis. All of us are excellent at the medical examination. I don't need to do that. What shall we do? Just the first word is very important. Counsel the parents. बऱ्याच गोष्टी तुम्हाला माहीत असतात. आज जे काही मी सांगितलं याच्यात कुठलीही गोष्ट तुम्हाला नवल नव्हती. Was there any great scientific knowledge that any of you heard? Even the medical students also know all this. It is common sense by and large. What is lacking is our approach, that we are trying to be too hi-fi. We just don't have the normal clinical history-based approach. Parenting is a very important issue. We won't talk about it much. But after you refer also, what is the point I want to make is, don't refer to somebody who then refers you to somebody else. I've seen so many doctors, they will see a child like this, either write medicines or refer to OT, refer to speech therapy, refer to physiotherapy, refer to psychologist, refer to shadow teacher, refer to special educator. अरे तो डॉक्टर आहेस की ट्रॅफिक पोलिसमॅन आहेस? डॉक्टर आहात की ट्रॅफिक पोलिसमॅन आहात? मग तुम्ही काय केलं? इफ यू हॅव टू रिफर टू अन ओटिस्ट, यू हॅव टू नो द डायग्नोसिस, you need to know the treatment, and you need to tell the otist to help you with that part of the treatment the otist is an expert at. You need to tell the speech therapist to help with that part of the speech which the speech therapist is expert at. But the speech therapist is not the expert of the child's psychological issue. Please understand this. So don't start just referring right, left and center to various departments unless you have a working diagnosis. And it's not difficult at all. I'm sure today even the medical students will be able to have some rough medical diagnosis. It's only that we haven't been taught this way. And because we've not been taught this way, what are parents doing? They're following things on Facebook or instant influencers or Gyan from online thing, or they're going for stem cells. And other false gods are नाही, त्याला कळत नाही ना ट्युशनला पाठवा, 2 तास नाही ना 4 तास, तो ऐकत नाही ना जरा मारा त्याला. स्पेशल नीड्स नाही, माय चाइल्ड हॅज स्पेशल नीड्स, त्याला स्पेशलिस्ट प्रोव्हिजन पाहिजे, काही गरज नसताना. रिसोर्स रूम्स, इन्क्लुजनच्या नावाखाली काही चालत असतं, शॅडो टीचर्सच्या अंडर, नंतर ॲगोनी आंट, संस्कारी अंकल, त्याला बाजूचे अंकल सांगतात नाही तुमच्या मुलाला तुम्ही बरोबर वाढवलंच नाही, किंवा तू कुठली तरी अंटी सांगेल. ऑल दिस विल नॉट हेल्प. सो बी केअरफुल अबाउट वॉट दे आर गेटिंग. And keep in mind simple things. Schedule, does your child get enough 10-11 hours of sleep at night? Is he too much on the media, outdoor play? What are his likes, dislikes? Aptitude. एखाद्याला गणित आवडतच नसेल, there is no point in expecting him to come first. Parental history बरोबरच grandparentsची हिस्ट्री, आणि grandparents आणि आईवडिलांची हिस्ट्री काय, that is also very important. And most important, you have to take a history of finding out घरात त्याच्याला किती ट्रॉमा होतोय. How much trauma is he facing at home because he has a learning disability? Nobody knows. They keep, तुला अभ्यासच येत नाही, तुझ्या बहिणीकडे बघ, ती किती हुशार आहे. This is how we behave with an adolescent. And this is the cause of the problem, not the solution. So again, today we have various different role models. All these children, today's kids have all foreign people abroad on YouTube, etc. as their role models. Somebody said that, using that 4-letter word, madam said, is like a common parlance today, but तो ट्रान्सलेट केला मराठीत, नंतर त्या जजनी त्याला शिक्षा दिली, कारण तो मराठीत शब्द वेगळा वाटतो. Similarly, vaping, if you meet children, they'll tell you, vaping, what is wrong with it? That is the attitude today. And I'm not saying that's the right thing, but I'm trying to tell you that for children, it has become like a normal thing. And remember the acronym SAD, suicide, anxiety and depression. But I would say that most of this comes only from what we have missed earlier. So try and check what we have missed. Don't just because somebody is suicidal start him on medications. Of course, he may need medications. But if his parental behavior at home has not changed, nothing is going to really help him. This is an article I've written in a book called, in the Outlook magazine. It's published here also in your souvenir. I'm going to give you the QR code. Please read it in detail because that has more explanation about what you can actually do. But the main thing that I have come to believe as a developmental pediatrician is what is lacking is man to man, human to human connect. आज काका, काकी, मावशी, आत्या ह्या नाहीच राहिल्या. आपण आपल्या घरात आपलं मूल आणि त्याची ट्युशन टीचर आणि शाळा आणि त्याचे मार्क आणि नंतर सुट्टी मिळाली की मुलं अभ्यास करतात म्हणून त्यांना आम्ही मुंबईला म्हणतो लोणावळ्याला न्यायचं, तुम्ही कुठे जातात मला माहीत नाही, कारण तुम्ही ऑलरेडी लोणावळ्यात आणि तळेगावला चांगल्या हव्याच्या ठिकाणी आहातच. अहो पण काका, काकी, मावशी, आत्या, मावस बहीण, चुलत भाऊ, काकी ह्यांच्याबरोबर वागायचं कसं हे शिकला नाही तर हे प्रॉब्लेम होतात. अँड आय हॅव सेड की बेसिकली इव्हेंच्युअली पालकांचं एम काय पालकत्वाचं, व्हॉट इज द अल्टिमेट एम ऑफ पेरेंटिंग? अल्टिमेट एम ऑफ पेरेंटिंग इज नॉट लिव्हिंग युअर चाइल्ड विथ 3 degrees. काहीच उपयोग होत नाही. बरेचसे हायली एज्युकेटेड माणसं, IITची माणसं सुसाईड करतात. नो पॉईंट लिव्हिंग हिम विथ अ ग्रेट अमाऊंट ऑफ मनी. आता अनिल अंबानी, मुकेश अंबानीला दोघांना इक्वल अमाऊंट ऑफ मनी होता. आता आज काय चाललं आहे? So leaving money also doesn't really mean that both will be equally successful. So the ultimate aim of parenting is leaving behind a child who can look after herself or himself in your absence. And who can be resilient because pressure आणि काम आणि टेन्शन हे येणारच आहे. दुःख और सुख के रास्ते बने हैं सबके वास्ते. तुम्ही ऐकल्या ती गाणी सर्व. Is he able to deal with that without the mother, without the father? And to do that, first he needs to be able to deal with काकी, मावशी, आत्या. समाजात मी आज तुमच्याशी कसं वागायचं हे मी इथे येऊन शिकू शकत नाही. हे मी लहानपणी काकी, मावशी, आत्या, तर तुमच्यात कोणतरी माझ्या काकीसारखी आहे, कोणतरी माझ्या मामीसारखी आहे, कोणतरी माझ्या मावशी आणि मामीचे कॉम्बिनेशन आहे. दॅट्स हाऊ आय कॅन डू इट. पण आजच्या मुलांना जर हे मिळतच नसेल तर ते शिकू शकत नाही. आणि मग कुठेही काही डिप्रेशन, काही अनहॅपी, काही चुकीचं झालं तर लगेच अनहॅपीनेस, मग अनहॅपीनेसमधून डिप्रेशन आणि रेझिलियन्स अजिबात नाही. दिस इज अगेन अ व्हिडिओ विच वी डिड विथ अ फ्रेंड ऑफ माइंड. अगेन यूट्यूबवर आहे. अ सिम्पल हग मॅटर्स. फक्त त्या मुलाला समजून घेणं इज वन ऑफ द मोस्ट इम्पॉर्टंट थिंग्स. आणि त्याच्याऐवजी किती औषधं द्या, किती काउन्सिलिंग करा, काही उपयोग होत नाही. शेवटी पालकांबद्दल आपण मुलांच्याबद्दल बोललोच, पण पालकांना हे सांगा. तुम्ही विमानात बसल्यावर तुम्हाला त्या अगोदर ते गाईडलाईन देतात ना की कसं काय करायचं. तर म्हणतात की हवा का दबाव कम होने पर मास्क गिरेंगे, मग पहिले अपना मास्क लगाइए, कारण तुम्हीच जर बेशुद्ध झालात तर मुलाचा मास्क कोण लावेल. सो व्हेरी इम्पॉर्टंट टू एक्सप्लेन, अँड दिस इज ऑल देअर इन दॅट आर्टिकल, यू कॅन गुगल इट. Explain to mother that your job is to do the best you can. If it doesn't work out, seek help. You are not superwoman. आणि आम्ही न्यू होरायझन्सला हे बिलीव्ह करतो गेली 20 वर्ष की डिसेबिलिटी एक्झिस्ट इन द माइंड ऑफ द पर्सन हू थिंक्स अनदर टू बी डिसेबल्ड. ह्याला कमी अक्कल आहे असं जर मला वाटत असेल तर त्या कमी अक्कलेच्या माणसाची अक्कल वाढवावी किंवा त्याचं काम कसं करायचं ही अक्कल मला नाही आहे. मी खरी अक्कल कमी माझी आहे. आणि जर माझी अक्कल कमी नसेल तर त्याला जो प्रॉब्लेम आहे तो सॉल्व्ह करण्याची जर अक्कल माझ्यात असेल तर मी नॉर्मल आहे, तो ॲबनॉर्मल नाही आहे. आम्ही न्यू होरायझन्सला ह्या ॲटिट्यूडने आम्ही सर्व काम करतो की आपल्याला आपलं काम वाढवायचं आहे, आपला विचार वाढवायचा आहे, आपल्या क्षमता वाढवायची आहे. समोर तो ऑटिस्टिक आहे बिचारा, त्याला सर्टिफिकेट घेऊन द्या, त्याला एक शॅडो टीचर द्या. नो, every child can get better, and what you need, you have to be a good and sensible human being to solve most problems. If you want, you can take a picture of this because these are the QR codes. You can scan this later and you can read the article later at your leisure. All free, of course, don't worry about that. You can share it, there's no problem at all. There's another resources. This is a IEP textbook of developmental behavioral pediatrics which has already sold around 14,000 copies. I was one of the editors for that. Again, small chapters, even as medical students, you may like to go through this. You may have it in the library. So good parenting guidance is the key to solution of most problems in children. The child is not the problem. Hyperactivity is not the problem. कुठे hyperactivity दाखवायची, कुठे दाखवायची नाही, हे कळत नसेल आणि वळत नसेल तो that is the problem. Only tackle that. आणि नो बिहेवियर प्रॉब्लेम इज अनसॉल्वेबल. माझ्या 20 वर्षाच्या करिअरमध्ये आय हॅव नेवर कम अक्रॉस अ चाइल्ड हू कुड नॉट बी हेल्प्ड. चिल्ड्रन ॲडॉलसंट्स आर मोस्ट ऑफन मिसअंडरस्टूड. हे आपण मानलं पाहिजे, कारण आपण जजमेंटल असतो. अरे तू त्याचा वडील आहे ना, वडील होते ना ते असेच होते लहानपणी. त्याची आई आहे ना ती काही लक्ष देत नाही मुलाकडे, तिला फक्त फॅशन करायची असते म्हणून तो मुलगा असा झाला. ह्याला आपण मेडिकल डायग्नोसिस म्हणून वापरतो. So you have to understand that common sense along with a detailed history tells you everything that you need to know. Very rarely you need the MRI. Try to find something wrong around the child before you find something wrong inside the child. Before you say that anything wrong in the child, find out what's happening around the child. And being circumspect about की काका असा त्याचा आलेला म्हणून असं काय झालं का, वडील असे वागतात म्हणून असं होत असेल का, आई डिप्रेस स्वतः आहे म्हणून असं काय होत असेल का. ऑलवेज लुक ॲट द सिच्युएशन अराउंड. शाळेतली टीचर अशी त्याला इन्सल्टिंग बोलते, मुलं इन्सल्ट करतात म्हणून तर असेल का. ॲनलाइज द एन्व्हायरमेंट अँड बी प्रोमोटिव्ह रादर दॅन क्युरेटिव्ह. नेवर फॉरगेट टू लुक फॉर न्यूरोलॉजिकल डिझीज. सो डोंट बी इन अ हरी टू लेबल द सिम्टम्स. हायपर ॲक्टिव्ह आहे, XYZ थेरपी करा. स्पीच डिले आहे, XYZ थेरपिस्टकडे पाठवा. अग्रेसिव्ह आहे, XYZ काउन्सिलरकडे पाठवा. नका करू असं, बिकॉज डोंट मिस्टेक द सिम्टम्स फॉर द डिसऑर्डर. डिफरेन्शिएट बिटवीन सिम्टम्स अँड डिसऑर्डर. More important in India or everywhere else actually, differentiate between reality and drama. The mother who comes to you is on the verge of suicide herself. She may be on the verge of suicide. She is so depressed, so unhappy because for years nobody has listened to her or given her any happiness or joy. There is bound to be a lot of drama in what she tells you. There is bound to be. She is normal, she is a human being. But when you take the history for the child, understand to separate. That mother has been tortured by the school. तुमचा मुलगा नालायक आहे, तो वर्गात बसतच नाही, तुम्हीच असे असाल. She has heard this month after month after month. There are mothers who get palpitation one day before the PTA meeting. Not just the students who get palpitation before exam. The mothers get, आता उद्या जायचं आहे, so she will go near the gate, drop the, तू आज जा तिकडनं पळून जाणार. These are situations. This is embarrassment and humiliation that the mother has to face always. So we must remember this. And do not initiate just, okay, बोलत नाही ना तू स्पीच थेरपी कर, तू बसत नाही ना तू ऑक्युपेशनल थेरपी कर, तू अग्रेसिव्ह आहेस ना तू दलवाईंकडे जा. डोंट डू ऑल दिस. यू हॅव टू कम टू अ कन्क्लुजन. So this is how basically I stand here and get all the glory. But this is my team which does all the work with the hundreds of children we have at New Horizons across Mumbai. Now we have an online division. They are the people from whom I learn because all of us work together, occupational therapists, speech therapists, psychologists, special educators, geneticists, developmental pediatricians, all of us work together and that's where we all learn. So finally, keep going, लाईफ इज नॉट वन मॅरेथॉन, सकाळी ते संध्याकाळी एकच रेस आहे असं नाही. स्मॉल 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 रेसेस, थोडं इकडे थोडं तिकडे, कधी चांगलं कधी वाईट, कधी बरं कधी नॉट सो बरं. दॅट्स ओके. टेक इट ॲज पार्ट ऑफ लाईफ. अँड रिमेंबर दिस मेसेज यू माईट थिंक आय एम सेईंग फॉर द चाइल्ड. You might think I'm saying Calvin and Hobbes. कोणी पाहिलं का Calvin and Hobbes? World's best psychiatrist is the Bill Witherspoon, the one who made Calvin and Hobbes. त्याच्या मेसेजेसमध्ये तुम्हाला बेस्ट सायकॉलॉजी कळेल, त्याच्या कार्टून्समध्ये. इफ यू कॅन फाइंड इवन वन पर्सन यू रिअली लाईक, यू आर लकी. असं ते कोण बोलतंय? मूल बोलतंय? नाही, आपण सर्व हे बोलतोय आज. आपल्या सर्वांना डाऊट आहे की डज माय husband really like me, does my wife really like me, does my father really like me, does my mother really like me, or she's upset because I don't get good marks, or he's upset because I'm dating the wrong girl. Everybody is unhappy. Is my boss unhappy at work? So we all need somebody who can like us. And the answer also is from us only. Can we be somebody who gives that support and likes somebody and makes somebody feel nice? So thank you for a very, very patient listening. I've overseeded my time. But thank you so much. I really thoroughly enjoyed myself interacting with all of you. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
I'm sure that deserves a huge round of applause. And that's a standing ovation for you, sir. So that is the proof of what your talk was for this audience. Thank you so much for talking in such a short time, such a complex topic where people have 2-day CMEs on neurodevelopment and child development, and you summed it up in such a short time. We loved your analogies. We loved the academic messages which you gave through. We loved the social messages that you put through. Life indeed is beautiful, sir, like your favorite movie. And we could see the child in him loving Calvin and Hobbes. And we can now see how children who come to your center see new horizons. So thank you so much. Now, this college has reached certain milestones by being constantly encouraged with love, sometimes a little nudge, sometimes a little push where needed. And we are lucky to be led by the front by our very own executive director, the dynamic lady, Dr. Suchitra Nagre, ma'am. May I please call her on podium to express her views.
Thank you, Sushma. What a wonderful talk by Dr. Samir Dalwai. I think I would expect one more round of applause for sir. I'll just say that, sir, जेव्हा तुम्ही बोलत होता तेव्हा इथे बसलेला प्रत्येकजण विल ॲग्री टू मी की एकतर आपल्याला मुलं दिसत होती आपली आणि आपले कॉन्व्हर्सेशन्स किंवा आपल्याला आपलं बालपण दिसत होतं. अँड एव्हरीवन वॉज टॉकिंग टू herself or himself when you were talking on the very crucial topic. आणि मला असं वाटतं की आय विल रिक्वेस्ट द डिपार्टमेंट ऑफ सायकॅट्री अँड पीडियाट्रिक्स टू सी दॅट वॉट एव्हर सायन्स अँड सिम्टम्स सर टोल्ड, वी शुड बी व्हेरी keen to assess our patients who are coming to this setup for whatever do they need the medical help. On the other hand, sir had also told about the epidemic of extreme behaviors. Like आत्ता मला विचाराल तर मी हे खूप बघते की मोठमोठे स्टार्स आणि कलाकार सध्या सायकॅट्री काउन्सिलिंगबद्दल बोलतात, त्यामुळे मुलं तिकडे वाहत चाललीत. प्रत्येक मूल येऊन म्हणतं की नाही नाही मला सायकॅट्रिस्टकडे जायचं आहे. पालक म्हणून आपण कितीही सांगितलं तरी त्यांना असं वाटतं नाही नाही माझी आई किंवा वडील मला नाही म्हणतायत, डिनाय करतायत वगैरे वगैरे बऱ्याच गोष्टी आहेत. Even I have learned that few kids go to the people on their own where the parents are not aware. आणि मला असं वाटतं इथे सुवर्ण मध्य साधणं जे म्हणतात की ॲज अ पेरेंट अँड ॲज अ पार्ट ऑफ सोसायटी वी ऑल शुड बी व्हेरी विजिलंट अबाउट डज एनीवन he or she needs the real help, and the right time should be approached, and we should catch up that right time for every student, every kid around us, every adolescent who is around us. मला असं वाटतं एवढंच म्हणेन की कराड सरांचं एकच वाक्य सर बोलताना आठवलं की काय करावं आणि काय करू नये हे ज्याला कळतं त्यांनी आयुष्याचं सर्व साध्य केलं असं आपण म्हणू शकतो. With these words, I am really thankful to the Department of OBGY, Pediatric and Forensic Medicine for calling such wonderful guests. Since morning I'm listening to the lectures, even the online Facebook live is going on. And it's very thought-provoking that when we are having so much advancement in the world with all the AI facilities available, what we are losing on, we have to self-assess at every step of our life. And what we should accept and what we should deny is very, very, very critical at every step. So with these words, I'm again thanking you, sir, for coming all the way and guiding us with giving so wonderful lecture. And the introspection, I think as a parent, we have to introspect ourselves that are we doing the right job? And we should be also careful about the people who are around us, who are less educated, maybe our servants, drivers, our home domestic helpers. Sometimes they are having more worst issues. I think the advocate madam, when she talked about this violence and everything, and even Dr. Bhushan Shukla talked about domestic violence on the parents, sometimes we are, with the fear of the society, we are like hiding the things. So we as the responsible citizen, we must look around us and help those who are in need. With these words, I would like to thank sir once again and all the speakers and the departments and all the people who are going to present in next 2 days. Wish you all the best. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, ma'am. We'll indeed keep in mind the few messages which you have said, which we are learning as we go by this conference today. Now it's time to deliver the vote of thanks for this inaugural session and the keynote session. And may I call upon Dr. Vaishali Korde, Head of Department of Pediatrics and one of the organizing chairpersons who has been behind the scenes for months together to put this show together.
Respected dais, our both executive directors, chief guest, Dalwai sir, principal madam, my co-chairpersons, Dr. Gaikwad sir and Dr. Deshmukh sir, and all my friends, student friends and colleagues. Sir, what a lucid presentation, and we all were mesmerized, and we were just absorbing all the messages. We were remembering, I was remembering my parent-teacher meetings, and many of us, we know that where we were lacking and how difficult it was for us also to go through all these phases. So when we decided, all three departments, OBGYN, FMT and Pediatric department, when we sat and we decided that what should be the theme of our conference, we all came down after a discussion that adolescents need some special attention and some special care, because this is a group ज्याला कवींनी म्हटलंय की ही फेज आहे जिथे सुरवंटाचं फुलपाखरू होतंय, आणि ॲट द सेम टाईम आपण त्यांना अर्धवट किंवा गद्धे पंचविशी असंही त्यांना संबोधतो. पण ओव्हरऑल आपल्या सगळ्यांना माहिती आहे की हा असा एक ग्रुप आहे की ज्याला एक स्पेशल अटेन्शन आणि स्पेशल केअर देण्याची गरज आहे. वी ऑल नो दिस की यांना एक म्हणजे ओपीडीत आला पेशंट तरी त्याला चाइल्ड म्हणून ट्रीट करायचं आहे की त्याला ॲडल्ट म्हणून ट्रीट करायचं आहे, इथपासून आपल्या मनामध्ये थोडी साशंकता आहे आणि यावर जास्त विचार व्हावा ही प्रत्येकाची इच्छा होते. फॉर एक्झाम्पल, जेव्हा गायनाकोलॉजिस्टकडे एखादी स्त्री इन्फर्टिलिटीसाठी येते तेव्हा आम्ही म्हणतो की कपलला ट्रीटमेंट द्यावी लागणार आहे. इन्फर्टिलिटी कॅनॉट बी ट्रीटेड ओनली बाय ट्रीटिंग द लेडी. So same applies here, that any adolescent problem cannot be treated only seeing the child. Parent forms an important limb of it. And sir, it would not be exaggeration if I add that even teachers play a very important role and becomes an important limb to it. Because when they leave their houses and come and stay in hostels for colleges, that time teachers become parents. And we all need to sit together and listen to the problems which adolescents face and how we can treat them as parent as well as teachers. And this is, with this thought, we discussed and we decided that we will have adolescent as the theme and Kishore Avastha आपण जास्त डिटेलमध्ये डिस्कस करू. अँड विथ दिस संकल्पना आम्ही जेव्हा ही पुढे घेतली तेव्हा डेफिनेटली आम्हाला इन्स्पिरेशन आणि ब्लेसिंग्स आमचे पेट्रन कराड सर आणि लेट घैसास सर यांच्या सततच्या इन्स्पिरेशनमुळे we could get all the preparation done for this conference. I thank them. I also would like to thank our executive directors who are always open for such ideas. When we get such ideas to them, they wholeheartedly support it and they give us the courage to take that idea forward. And with that, we could take this idea of whole 2 days conference on adolescent. I would also like to extend a very warm welcome and thanks to the faculty who have agreed to come over here for this conference. And I would start with Mehendra Madam. Madam is a senior most gynecologist in Pune. She is an excellent teacher and Madam is here. She is part of the panel tomorrow, but she is here 9 o'clock dot. She is ready to judge the papers and wholehearted, full support. Madam, thank you so much. The faculty which we have been witnessing since morning, Dr. Bhushan Shukla, he gave excellent oration. Advocate Bhagwat, she is a master in this, and adolescents definitely need a lot of protection, and we all need to know what are the facilities available and how the laws tries to protect them. So that was excellent piece of information, and the keynote now was a highlight. So none other than you, sir, can be the chief guest for this kind of a conference, and we are really fortunate and thankful that you accepted our invitation. Tomorrow again, we will be having excellent orations by Dr. Jain Navrange sir, who is again an authority on medico-legal aspects. Dr. Harshad Parasnis, who is an onco-gynecologist and who has authority on the immunization, the HPV vaccine, which is available. And there would be clinical panel which would discuss that, what are the practical difficulties we face when we deal with adolescent people. And that panel, we will have Dr. Jyoti Shetty, who is HOD at Bharati Medical Hospital of Psychiatry Department. She would be joining in. Dr. Vaishali Deshmukh, who is a practicing pediatrician who practices only for adolescent group. We will have Dr. Sampada, Dr. Naresh Janjad, who is HOD FMT at Sholapur Medical College. So this whole panel would enlighten us more about the problems of adolescents. So I thank all the faculty who have agreed to come down. Our MMC observer, Dr. Sanjay Pathare sir, sir is just here, and I welcome him on behalf of MIMER. And I would like to thank all the delegates, like around 90 papers. I think that's a huge success this conference has. And these papers are from all over the state. 50 papers almost from outside, the delegates who are coming from Akola, Jalgaon, and they are participating in this conference. So a very warm welcome to them, to our campus, and to MIMER. The outside delegates are also welcome. And then I would request you to give a big round of applause to the organizing team. With the JEEL, they have worked irrespective of having NAG and the camp running and all the preparations. So a big round of applause. Only because of their efforts, the whole organizing team of this conference, I congratulate them all and welcome. And we are very grateful to the pharma support which we have received. And so to give you one added compliment, that usually when the guest lecture goes on, pharma people are busy with their own things. But I was watching from here and everybody was listening very patiently and very keenly to your talk. So that says that this topic is very close to everyone's heart and we need this. And we also need to know like how we can manage adolescent, whether it's our sibling, whether it is our patient, whether it is our friend or we ourselves. So I just like to thank every one of you who's part of a grand success of this conference. And we also have we thought, sir, that it shouldn't be just very academic and theoretical. As we get the immunization talk tomorrow, we also have arranged the vaccination, if anybody is interested, our students or the parent, HPV vaccination at a very concessional rate. You see 2 counters behind. So any adolescent, our student or outside, can register if you are interested in getting the HPV vaccination, girls as well as boys, because this vaccination is very important. After Sir's talk, you will understand that rubella vaccination is important, but HPV is also equally important. The facility is arranged here at a very concessional rate, almost 600 or 700 rupees discount you will be getting. So you just have to enroll your name, and later we will arrange for the vaccination. So this is what as practicality, and thank you, madam, for allowing us to do this. And this would be a practical implication of this conference. So I thank you all for this wonderful support, and we declare the conference inaugurated. Thank you.
Thank you, Vaishali, for acknowledging the contributions of all who have put up this two-day conference with their efforts. As we come to the end of this inaugural function, may we all stand once more and seek the blessings of the Almighty, again a tradition of the Mayir groups, to render the verses of Pasaidan. May I please request you to stand for the same.
आता विश्वात्मके देवे येने वाग्यज्ञे तोषावे तोषोन्मज जावे पसायदान हे जे खळांची व्यंकटी सांडो तया सत्कर्मी रतिवाढ भूता परस्परे पडो मैत्र जीवांचे दुरिताते तिमिरदा विश्वस्वधर्म सूर्ये पाहो जो देवांचील तो तेला हो प्राणी जात वर्षत सकळ मंगळी ईश्वर निष्ठांची मांदियाळी अनवरत भूमंडळी भेट तू भूता चला कल्पतरूंचे आरव चेतना चिंतामणीचे गाव बोलते जे अर्णव पियुषाचे चंद्रमे जे अनंतन मार्तंड देता बहीण ते सर्वाही सदा सज्जन सोय रे हो तू किंबहुना सर्व सुखी पूर्ण होऊन सिही लोकी भजिजो आदि पुरुषी अखंडित आणि ग्रंथोपजीविये विशेषी लोकीये दृष्टादृष्ट विजये हो आवे येथ म्हणे श्री विश्वेश्वराव हा होईल दान पसाव येणे वरे ज्ञान देवो सुखिया
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, dear dignitaries on the dais. May I please request you to please join us for lunch. We come to the end of the inaugural function with that, and All the delegates and all the attendees are also cordially invited to join for lunch, which is being served in the building opposite, which is on the ground floor. Please join us back after 30 minutes. We will move onwards with the rest of the conference. Thank you so much.
Judges, and we can start the session with.
My doctors on Doctors' Day in July 2012. So with this, I welcome ma'am. Thank you.
The other judge for today's session is Dr. Jayashree Petkar. She's a professor and head of Department of Microbiology at the PCMC Postgraduate Institute and YCM Hospital Pimpri in Pune. She has 15 publications in the area of interests of tuberculosis, antimicrobial stewardship, and prevention of hospital-acquired infections. Please welcome her with a big hand.
So today's first speaker is Dr. Santosh.
Yeah, good afternoon. So the topic of that I'm going to present today is the physics and artificial intelligence related project, which is modeling of the normal human tympanic membrane as a damped harmonic oscillator. See, the tympanic membrane plays a vital role in the human cognition, of the human hearing. It is basically a mechanical vibrator. It converts the vibrational energy in the air into the mechanical vibration of the drum and the ossicles and the windows, the oval window. So it's a mechanical vibration conversion which is done by the eardrum. It's a gateway to the middle ear and the inner ear, and it functions in protecting the inner ear structures from infection. And there's a lot of diagnostic and prognostic significance to an intact tympanic membrane. For example, you cannot join armed forces if you are having a perforation of the drum. You would automatically disqualify. So there is always some diagnostic and therapeutic implications of a healthy tympanic membrane. So what I'm trying to do is mathematically model the tympanic membrane using various mathematical equations. And this is one of the equations. This is not of a damped harmonic oscillator. It is of a simple harmonic oscillator, which you must have studied in your 12th standard. So this is the basic equation. And then we progress on to the complicated version of this simple harmonic motion, which is the damped harmonic oscillator motion. So here the most important thing is the K, the spring constant, which is the elasticity of the membrane. And then we have the dampening coefficient, which is the C, which is responsible for loss of energy at the interfaces so that the vibration does not go on infinitely. And then there's one more equation that I have used is the Bessel function. Bessel function is a function that is a second order differential equation that is solved for sound transmission across a membrane, okay, an elastic membrane. So this is a Bessel function, and the equation is expressed here. It's actually a third order partial differential equation. And as usual, this is what the model is. This is actually the solution of these differential equations as done by Scientific Python. So this is my program that has given the output. So this is if the tympanic membrane is modeled as a simple harmonic oscillator, this is what the vibrations will get. And if it is modeled as a damped harmonic oscillators, which is probably the true nature of the tympanic membrane, as my paper says, as the title says. So you get the oscillations, this kind of oscillations, and all the data is substituted in the model using cadaver data and those available in the literature, thickness, elasticity, and K spring constant, and damping coefficient. All this is taken from cadaver data, which is available from anatomical papers. And then we have the condition where there is hypermobile drum. As you can see, comparing to this one, the oscillations are much higher in a monomeric drum, which is usually follows the perforation of the drum. When there is a perforation, it heals without the middle layer. So there is a monomeric drum, and you get an extra oscillation. And these oscillations continue for a long period of time. So that also hampers the sound conduction. That is what I'm trying to say with this graph. These are actually outputs from the mathematical model. Okay, these are all outputs from the mathematical model. These graphs are outputs when these equations that I showed you are solved. And then you have the damped harmonic oscillation with the perforated drum, where the area of the tympanic membrane is reduced. Here I am taking off 50% almost size of the perforation. So 50% of the drum approximately. So you get that there is almost very little sound conduction. Naturally, there is deafness. So this is the frequency-wise plot, what we get when you are going to put frequency data using the Bessel function. This is the plots you get. So what is the output? Finally, your question going to ask me is, what is the benefit of this study? So this will help in the hearing aid optimization. It helps in the medical device development, treatment planning for auditory conditions, biomechanical insights in the sound conduction process. It's an educational tool. Basically, it's a model. So, there is stimulation and testing, and there is prosthetic development, and there is research on hearing disorders. So all this can be done by using this model. Thank you very much.
Whether implementation of your study has been done?
No, madam.
In your, no.
Not yet. I'm going to publish this. Let's see.
Asha. Because you have studied, but you should know the results also, no? Whether it is really good, this study. So you have not yet started implementation of
No, madam. Nothing implemented yet. This is only a pilot study. I'm doing
pilot study.
So what is the principle of damped harmonic oscillator?
Basically, madam, if you don't account for the energy loss when there is a oscillation, imagine a spring or a pendulum. If you don't account for energy loss, the oscillation will go on endlessly, right? Or it will proceed for a very long period of time. That doesn't actually happen in nature, right? So there is always some dampening, something that cuts the energy, that takes the energy away. For example, tympanic membrane, most likely it's the mass of the tympanic membrane and the presence of the malleus inside the tympanic membrane that damps the oscillation. That's what I'm trying to model. So the energy is lost, and despite the energy loss, the tympanic membrane still vibrates and the sound is being conducted. Yeah. Thank you very much, madam.
Dr. Eva.
A very good afternoon to all the esteemed judges and the faculties present here. Myself, Dr. Eva, I'll be presenting my topic, morphometric evaluation of acromion process of scapula in population of central Maharashtra. So one of the most important cause of pain and disability in the upper limb is the inflammation of the rotator cuff tendons and surrounding tissues. While the etiology of this condition is still unknown, it has been hypothesized that the compression of supraspinatus tendons under the coracoacromial arch causes damage to the tendon. And this arch is composed of the following parts, which we see in the diagram here. It has the coracoid process, the acromion process, and we can see schematically we have drawn a green ligament showing the coracoacromial arch formation. The space below the arch gives passage to the tendon of muscles forming the musculorotator cuff. Any abnormality that disturbs the relationship of this subacromial structure may lead to impingement syndrome. Surgical procedures such as acromioplasty are used for the treatment of impingement syndromes. Morphological variation of acromion process and its relationship with the glenoid cavity and the coracoid process is most relevant factor determining the height of this subacromion space. So numerous authors have proposed a relationship between the coracoacromial arch anatomy and the rotator cuff tears. In 1972, Near S introduced the concept of impingement as a cause of the rotator cuff tears. He emphasized that the impingement occurs at the anterior edge of the acromion and underlying rotator cuff rather than between the lateral aspect and the rotator cuff that has been previously thought. Various studies have shown that variation in the shape and slope of the anterior aspect of the acromion are the responsible for subacromial impingement syndrome. So keeping the above points in mind, the present study was conducted with the aim to study the variation in the morphology of acromion process and coracoacromial arch in dry scapulas, to study the anatomical role of coracoacromial arch as mechanical causative factor in coracoacromial arch impingement syndrome leading to the rotator cuff tears. The material methods, this study was conducted in Maima Medical College Anatomy Department using 101 undamaged adult human scapula, and measurements were done using the manual vernier caliper. We have taken the following 5 parameters, which included the acromion process, where we measured the length, thickness, and width, the coracoacromial arch distance, and acromioglenoid distance. The sample size was of 101. Using the following mentioned formula, we calculated the sample size. We included the morphologically intact scapula and excluded the partially or completely damaged scapulas. For measurements, the length was measured from the tip of acromion to the midpoint of the posterior border. For the width, we have taken the width at 3 different points, at the middle, at the anterior, and the posterior edge, and then we took the mean value of the 3 values that we are getting. For the acromioglenoid distance, we took the distance from the tip of the acromion process to the supraglenoid tubercle. And for the coracoacromial ligament, we used a semi-rigid wax which replicated the coracoacromial ligament that was triangular in shape, just resembling the ligament. And then we marked the midpoint in the center of that ligament. From there to the supraglenoid tubercle, we measured the coracoacromial arch distance. We also classified the acromions into 3 types, like a quadrangular, a tubular, and a triangular shape, as shown in the figures. And we also classified the acromions in 3 types using the reference of Biglani et al. In type 1, type 2, and type 3. Where the type 1 or flat was characterized by relatively straight shape without notable downward or forward curvature. The curved had slight curvature, which is downward and forward, and the undersurface angle was moderately curved or creating a gentle slope. Whereas the hook included those who were significantly curved more than the type 2. Moving to the results, when we assessed the result, we found the following results. The flat acromions, from the lateral view, we saw that the flat acromions were almost 50%, which were 27 of the right and 23 belonging to the left side. The curved was 44%, 23 of the right and 21 of the left side. Hooked scapulars were 7%, 5 from the right and 2 from the left side. Similarly, as we classified them according to the shape, triangular were almost 14%, quadrangular were 59%, and tubular were 28%. Then we have measured all the length, width, and thickness of the scapulars, and we have taken the ANOVA test, where we have tried to correlate these different shapes with their different dimensions. We do not find any statistical significance between the forms of the acromion and its various dimensions. The impingement of the rotator cuff beneath the coracoacromial arch has been recognized as one of the cause for chronic disability of the shoulder. Disappointing results of the complete coracoactomy and lateral acromiotomy stimulated investigators to probe the undersurface of the acromion in the genesis of impingement syndrome. On the morphology of acromion process of scapula, numerous studies have been done, and despite of these studies, the exact association of the morphology and morphometry and subacromial impingement syndromes remains complex and multifactorial. One of the study done by Mansoor et al. Reported 3 different types of acromion process in their studies, where they have quadrangular shape as 52%, and we also found the similar result. We had quadrangular 59%. Biglani et al. Classified the scapulars in 3 different types, where they found that the type 3 was most commonly associated with the impingement, and we also observed that we have almost 50% type 1, 44 type 2, and 7 type 3, whereas they found 8.6 as type 1, type 2 was 42%, and type 3 was 38%. We have also compared a study with different authors, which has been compiled in this table, where we have compared the values of different types of acromions with the study of different authors. The research conducted by Capret et al. Identified 4 independent risk factors for impingement syndromes like smoking, occupation, acromion shape, and sleep position. Apart from lateral acromion, the anterior edge and undersurface are possible sites for impingement. So, to maintain the rotator cuff dynamics, the surgeon needs to carry our acromioplasty. Morphologic evaluation of acromion process in population of the central Maharashtra will help the surgeons in determining the normal range of acromion parameters during acromioplasty. From present study, we found that there is no relation between the degenerative changes and acromion process, which may predispose to impingement and morphology of acromion process. This necessitates a further detailed study of other factors which may be responsible for impingement in living subjects, which we plan to do so in the near same future. These are my references. Thank you.
What is the clinical significance of your study?
Ma'am, the clinical significance is, see, because we have different types of scapulars. So we say that as the space between the coracoacromion ligament reduces, so we have the supraspinatus or the rotator cuff tendons that are crossing below this space. And if that space is reduced, there are more chances of impingement of those ligaments. So those surgeons who plan, those in certain people like swimmers or sports person, where regressive, repetitive use of these tendons causes their inflammation. And in such cases, surgeons have to perform, when it is not reduced by any other possibilities, then the surgeons perform acromioplasty. So when they are doing such surgeries, they need to understand what is the thickness or what is the length and other dimensions of the acromion. And they can decide how much bone they have to reduce and how much they can still save.
Do you think other comorbidities may have adverse effect on this? Means impinging or bone thickness?
Ma'am,
as the age advances.
Yes, there are certain age changes that are.
So whether it will be helpful in such conditions? Because as the age advances,
yes, there are degenerative.
Bone density
yes,
is decreased, degenerative changes are there. So whether this study will be helpful for them?
Ma'am, certain studies are saying that degenerative changes are quite seen in the scapula, and certain studies say that in the scapulas where the degenerative changes are more, like if you get a pseudofacets or bony spurs, there the this impingement chances are more, in fact. So there they have to look out for, if there is some patient with advanced age, then clinicians should have to look for these if they have any history of such syndromes, or it is quite possible.
If it is so, the surgery may not be beneficial for that particular patient. So we have to explain this to the patient also.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Dr. Ashwini.
Good afternoon. The human evolution takes us back to the from quadriplegic gait to the bipedal gait. Inferior extremity is very peculiar for its function for weight bearing and locomotion. During the gait cycle, our heel touches the ground first, and for the next swing, the propulsive action is important to move on. As your great toe or big toe flexes while your heel rises, it is a springboard mechanism from which you can push off from the ground. When you step down, 86% of your body weight is absorbed by your metatarsal joints, and majority of that is absorbed by the great toe. I'm here to tell the tale about one of the barrier for the great toe, explaining about the variation in the morphology of extensor hallucis longus, a cadaveric study. Leg region in the humans, it is divided into 3 compartments, anterior, posterior, and the lateral compartment. Extensor hallucis longus is one of the member from the anterior compartment. It originates from the medial surface of the fibula, sharing its origin along with the interosseous membrane, travels deep to the extensor retinaculum, upper and the lower bands, along with the tibialis anterior and the extensor rigidorum longus. This is actually, the belly is overlapped by these 2 muscles also. When it is traveling, so it exerts or inserts on the distal phalanx of the great toe. For this study, we have performed on total 85 lower limbs of male and female cadavers available in the Department of Anatomy, Mimar Medical College. The sample is combination of 45 left and the 40 right lower limbs fixed in the 10% of the formalin. It was having 40 male and 45 female lower limbs. The exclusion criteria used was the damaged foots, damaged tendons, discolored or the adhesions in the specimen were excluded. After applying the exclusion criteria, we could only dissect the 80% or 80 of the lower limbs, studying for the extensor hallucis longus. Protocol for the dissection: the limbs were carefully dissected after removal of the skin from the dorsum of the foot and the leg. The muscle extensor hallucis longus was identified from its origin to the insertion, their origin, type of insertion, length of the lower limb. Length of the lower limb was calculated from anterior superior iliac spine to the medial malleolus. Length of the extensor hallucis longus belly is calculated from origin to insertion. Extensor hallucis longus width at origin is calculated. Extensor hallucis longus tendon thickness is calculated. And for extra or accessory tendons, we have calculated from their branching to the insertion point with the manual vernier caliper. Morphological observations show us 3 different types of the insertion of the extensor hallucis longus. Type 1 we have labeled from the references as the most common type observed, which shows the insertion normal, that is at the distal most phalanx of the great toe, which we have observed for the 65% of the sample. Then type 2 we have further divided into type A, B and C, which is depending on the accessory tendon. Type 2A is showing normal tendon inserting or the main tendon inserting on the distal phalanx and the accessory tendon on the proximal phalanx of the great toe, that we have observed for 5%. Type 2B, which shows accessory tendon on the base of the first metatarsal medially, which is shown in the 15%. Type 2C on the body of the first metatarsal, which was shown in the 3% of the samples. Then type 3 again, the main tendon was exerted or inserted on the distal phalanx, and depending on insertion of the accessory tendon, we have found 3A and 3B, in which 3A inserts on the second metatarsal and the 3B is the trilaminar insertion. This is the first and most common type of the insertion on the distal phalanx. These are the subtypes of the type 2, where extra tendons are labeled, accessory tendons are labeled with the arrow. 2A shows the proximal phalanx of the great toe insertion of the accessory tendon. 2B shows base at the first metatarsal medially. 2C shows on the body of the first metatarsal. Type 3 includes insertion on the second metatarsal, and type 3B, it includes the trilaminar insertion. Statistical analysis: the results are presented as mean and standard deviation unless otherwise stated. The data is evaluated by the SPSS software through ANOVA and the Pearson correlation tables. These are the mean and the standard deviation for the observation. Pearson correlation was statistically significant for the 1 or 2 asterisk marks. It includes length of the leg. It is correlated with the width of the origin, thickness at the origin, distance between branching and the insertion of the tendon. So they are marked accordingly as first 1 or the 2 asterisk marks. The variation were observable, but they are not statistically significant. The findings for our study were bilateral. There was no bias for or no any different finding for male or female. Several studies are being conducted for the morphological study of the extensor hallucis longus. In our study, the extra observation that we have got is of 2C variation, which is insertion on the body of the first metatarsal, and 3A insertion, where we can see the extra tendon going on the second metatarsal. So these were extra observations in our study. Rest of the studies were performed and they were showing the subtypes also. Few of the studies they were showing the extra tendon for extensor hallucis longus coming from the tibialis anterior, inserting as good as the extensor hallucis longus. These are the comparative tables and findings for the subtypes of the extensor hallucis extensor tendon, accessory tendon. For the conclusion, the morphology variation can be explained by the embryology of the developing muscle. Another perspective to look at it is evolutionary basis. The muscle is still evolving as it shows no degeneration in the mass of the muscle, but there is advancement in the type of the insertion, which some way stimulates like flexor digitorum superficialis as the bifurcation. Ethnicity and racial differences can be quoted for the different regional studies. Extensor hallucis longus is commonly used tendon for the grafting purpose. The muscle is overlapped by the extensor digitorum longus and the tibialis anterior. Detailed morphological study will help for the graft harvesting for the surgeons precisely. We propose the revision of the classification for the Indian ethnicity, and the morphological variation should be clinically correlated by the radiological study for the surgical significance. These are my references. Thank you.
What will be its clinical application?
Ma'am, as I have quoted in the discussion also, extensor hallucis longus is one of the tendon used for the grafting purpose, which can be very difficult to trace from. It is deep-seated. If you see in the cadaver, it is overlapped by the tendons of tibialis anterior and extensor digitorum longus. So there will be better understanding if there is understanding of the width at the origin part, where exactly the tendon begins. It will be easier for the guidance of the surgeon who is going to harvest the tendon for the graft purpose.
You have shown in the picture additional tendon also, na,
Yeah,
secondary.
yeah, ma'am.
In 2
A.
and 3.
Yes, ma'am.
So whether there will be, means same procedure can be done for grafting, or they have to modify because there is additional tendon?
Ma'am, usually the grafting tendon is used depending on the thickness and the width of the tendon. So accessory tendon cannot be used. But if you are using some part of the only tendon present or the main tendon, and if you can preserve the accessory tendon, it will preserve the action of that, skipping the high stepping gait of the patient. Thank you, ma'am.
Why revision of classification is needed?
Ma'am, in the references we have found the classification as one is commonly observed, that is normal insertion, while criteria 2 or the 2 subdivision, 2A is we have seen in the references, 2B also we have seen in the references. Even 2A, that is proximal phalanx of the great toe and at the base of the metatarsal, they have compared it with the insertion of the extensor hallucis brevis. But the insertion on the metatarsal body, first metatarsal body, and insertion on the second metatarsal is, we have not observed in any references shown. That's why there should be a detailed revision for all ethnicity and the racial differences.
And is this revision going to impact the clinical implications also?
Yes, ma'am. Wherever there is need of the grafting, or if at all there is any laceration injury also, they can preserve the action if there is accessory tendon present. Thank you, ma'am.
Dr. Nilesh?
Hello everyone, I am Dr. Nilesh Jadhav, Senior Resident in Department of Pathology. I am here to present my topic, molecular classification of breast cancers and its significance in therapy and prognosis. Breast cancer is the most prevalent cancer among women worldwide. Immunohistochemical analysis of tumors on the basis of status of ER, PR and HER2 is most commonly used in clinical practice nowadays. This method is easier, cost-effective and provides similar results for molecular subtypes. Immunohistochemistry-based molecular subtyping of tumors is now considered as the mainstay to predict susceptibility of tumors to hormonal therapy. These are the types of breast cancers according to immunohistochemistry: luminal A, luminal B, HER2 positive and triple negative. Luminal A is ER-PR positive while HER2 negative or low. Luminal B is ER-PR positive while HER2 positive or negative. HER2 positive is ER-PR negative and HER2 positive only, and triple negative is all three negative. So histological grade according to the types, it's more in triple negative. There are different molecular subtypes, and triple negative is most aggressive among them. Triple negative breast cancer is called so because it lacks expression of ER, PR, and HER2/neu. ER/PR HER2/neu positive tumors tend to present with less aggressive clinical features, while triple negative breast cancers tend to present with more aggressive clinical features, and they tend to recur earlier with higher frequency. While ER/PR HER2/neu positive tumors are effectively and routinely treated with respected targeted therapies, TNBCs lack targeted therapy and are still treated with systemic chemotherapy drugs. Expression on IHC are done by Aldred scoring system and ASCO-CAP guidelines. Aldred scoring system use proportion score and intensity score. These are images of ER positive and PR positive tumors. ER positive shows strong positivity, while PR positive shows the weak positivity. These are ER negative and PR negative images. This is HER2/neu positive and HER2/neu negative image. Histological grading of breast cancer is done by modified Scarf-Bloom-Richardson grading, which uses tubule formation, nuclear size, mitotic count, and the grading is given by combined as grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. This is a 3-year retrospective analysis of IHC done to study breast cancer cases. A data of 58 breast cancer cases were analyzed by histopathology, and 30 of them were analyzed by immunohistochemistry. Results were 53.33% of the cases were TNBC, while 6.66% of cases were only ER positive, 23.33% cases of ER and PR positive, and only HER2/neu positive was 10%. Correlation with histological grading, ER/PR positive and TNBC, the TNBC shows more number of cases in grade 2 and grade 3. According to histopathological grading, in grade 1 and grade 2, patients with TNBC are almost in equal proportion with patients with ER/PR or HER2 positive, while TNBC are found to be more in grade 3. It was observed that patients with TNBC had poor prognosis irrespective of the treatment given. In patients who had ER, PR, and HER2/neu or any of them positive responded better to the treatment and had better prognosis. Comparing with other studies, the study which were done outside India, they show lower percentage of TNBC, while Indian studies show higher percentage of TNBCs. Conclusion, breast cancers other than TNBC respond well to hormonal therapies, which is given according to their type. As compared to the Western countries, India has considerably higher prevalence of TNBC. This finding has significant clinical relevance as it may have contributed to the poor outcomes in patients with breast cancer in India. The molecular heterogeneity of TNBC necessitates the creation of several therapeutic modalities with various targets. Targeted therapies including PARP inhibitors and CDK inhibitors, immune molecule-based treatments such as cytokines, neoantigen cancer vaccines, as well as OV-based treatments, ACT-based treatments are revolutionizing the therapeutic algorithm in both clinical and preclinical settings. The novel combinational treatment scenario has the potential in significant to enhance the results of patients with TNBC in addition of chemotherapy. TNBC is arguably the most difficult subtype of breast cancer to treat, and finding the best course of action for TNBC patients is still a critical unmet need in view of pre-op chemotherapy trials. These are my references. Thank you.
Why only half samples, only 30 samples were subjected to immunohistochemistry? What is the reason for that?
Ma'am, due to financial constraints or the loss of patient to the follow-up, like that. The patient did diagnose breast cancer from us, and then they went to IHC for other hospital or like cancer hospital bigger.
But could it lead to skewed data?
Maybe it can.
Okay, and did you find out why the TNBC are more common in Indian population?
No, ma'am, but the other studies also show that TNBCs are common in Indian population.
What are the reasons for that? Did you do any literature review for that?
No, ma'am, there is not such. I have researched about that, but there is nothing as such given.
Can you draw a conclusion? Because your sample study is only 30, no?
Yes, ma'am. We will add more samples to that, and conclusion is like this only, but we will add more samples before publishing. Thank you.
Dr. Tanvi.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Dr. Tanvi Sambhus. I am a senior resident from the Department of Pathology, and I will be presenting a study titled Decoding the Dynamics of the Distribution of Blood Components in a Tertiary Care Rural Hospital. Edwin J. Cohn in 1947 first introduced the concept of separation of blood into blood components. This was refined in the 1960s with the advent of refrigerated centrifuges. The term blood component implies the separation of whole blood into blood components, and the blood transfusion service in India comprises 2,760 blood banks in the country, of which 71% have the facility for component separation. However, despite the increasing availability of components in this country, whole blood transfusions predominate. There are 273 registered blood centers in Maharashtra, of which 96 have component separation facilities, 56 blood centers in Pune, all of which offer component separation services. However, till now, no such study has been conducted regarding blood component utilization in the rural Mawal region of Pune district. The aims of the study were to analyze the pattern of utilization of blood components in a tertiary care rural hospital, to evaluate the most frequent clinical conditions for transfusion of blood and its components, to observe the trends seen with the issue of blood components, and to foresee future blood component needs based on these observed trends. This was a retrospective descriptive study which attained approval from the ethical committee. Requisition forms for blood components for the last 5 years were retrieved and studied for clinical details and components requested. Requisitions from centers outside of ours were excluded, confidentiality was maintained, and the universal sampling method was used. Results were tabulated. In a 5-year period, 5,147 requisition forms were analyzed. The age range was that from a newborn to 105 years. The mean age was 37 years, and the age group in which greatest number of blood components were requested was the 21 to 30-year age group, in which females predominated. Females in the 21 to 30-year age group showed the most packed red blood cell and fresh frozen plasma utilization, whereas males in the 0 to 10-year age group showed the most utilization of random donor platelets. The mean pre-transfusion hemoglobin level was 7.4 gram per deciliter. Severe anemia was seen to be more in children between 5 to 14 years, non-pregnant women above 15 years, and in males above 15 years. The department that requested the greatest number of components was that of medicine, followed by OBGYN, and packed red blood cells was the most requested blood component. There was a sharp increase in the use of packed red blood cells, followed by fresh frozen plasma. Cryoprecipitate was the least used blood component, followed by whole blood. The most common indication for transfusion was anemia, followed by obstetric causes and surgical causes. The mean age was 37, reflecting the younger growing population in our country. A study conducted in Zimbabwe had comparable observations. Blood utilization dwindled in the elderly, which is in contrast with studies conducted in the Western countries, with Wells et al. Showing a mean age of 62.7 years. The 21 to 30-year age group predominated, of which most were female, findings which are concordant with Gupta et al. And Kumar et al. The greatest packed red blood cell and fresh frozen plasma utilization in the 21 to 30-year age group was by female patients, which probably reflects the most number of these components being requested by the Department of OBGYN. Males in the 0 to 10 year age group utilize the most random donor platelet units, which is reflected by the cases of neonatal sepsis and bleeding tendencies in this age group. According to the cutoffs based on age and sex laid down by the WHO on the severity of anemia, severe anemia was predominant in children between 5 to 14 years, non-pregnant women above 15 years, and in men above 15 years. The other demographics suffered from moderate anemia. Mean pre-transfusion hemoglobin level was 7.4, a finding which is concordant with that of Kaur et al. The greatest number of blood components were requested by the Department of Medicine, followed by OBGYN, which was similar to findings seen by Vagela et al. And the most common indication was anemia. Studies conducted by Bansod et al., Gaur et al., and Sanwalka et al. Also showed anemia to be the commonest indication. While not the most common indication, thalassemia, there were quite a few number of thalassemic patients. One patient had sickle cell thalassemia. Certain communities show higher frequencies of beta thalassemia like Sindhis, Gaurs, Lodhanas, etc. And Kola et al. Reported a subset of Sindhi population in Maharashtra with a frequency of beta thalassemia of 15 to 17%. They stressed on the importance of subgroup micromapping to evaluate disease burden. The most common blood component issued was packed red blood cells, which showed an increase or a rising trend. Findings which are mirrored by Hulwan et al. Ambrios et al. Found a marked decrease in the utilization of whole blood and a rise in FFP utilization. However, there were conflicting reports by Misal et al. And Gaur et al. Who reported a maximum issue to be whole blood as compared to that of blood components. This study demonstrates the utilization of blood components by the clinical departments of a tertiary care rural hospital in the Marvel region. There is an urgent need to screen for and manage patients with anemia, including options other than blood transfusions. Although not the commonest indication for transfusion, there is a significant utilization of packed red blood cell units by thalassemic patients on a monthly basis. However, whether to study its prevalence in the Marvel region is a question for the future. Deliberation on the various methods of optimizing blood component usage and formulation of a management plan according to the trends and future forecasts is warranted. It is important for blood centers to be able to fulfill the demands for these life-saving products and at the same time to evaluate and assess the existing trends of blood ordering. Hence, a periodic review of blood component usage is essential to assess blood utilization pattern. The limitation of this study was that the number of components requested in each case was not assessed, so the incidence of single unit transfusions versus multiple unit transfusions was not evaluated. These are my references. Thank you.
In your study, many cases they received blood transfusion, means packed cell, for anemia.
Yes, ma'am.
Actually, nowadays we are not giving a blood transfusion for the treatment of anemia. So many other modalities, means injectable iron available, which improves the hemoglobin. And you have said that maximum transfusions were given in a female between 21 to 32
years
of
age.
So naturally, obstetric indications.
Yes, yes.
So which obstetrical indication actually was in need of so many components? Have you studied that?
Ma'am, most of the requests from OBGYN for these obstetric indications was for labor or as a precaution for labor, as preparation for labor. Few were of...
No. Labor, but any complication during labor? Have you studied that?
I haven't studied it statistically, but there were cases of postpartum hemorrhage and similar such indications. Most of them were just antenatal indications.
In your study, some non-specific indications are also mentioned.
Yes, ma'am.
So can you name what were these non-specific indications?
Neonatal seizures, post-COVID pulmonary fibrosis, where anemia would have been the indication, I presume, but the hemoglobin level was not mentioned. But this was the diagnosis that was given. So this is what I have recorded.
I don't think we can take diagnosis as indication. We have to find out what's the reason for blood transfusion. That would
Yes,
be
ma'am.
labeled. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And in your study, you have also mentioned that cryoprecipitate was the least asked.
Yes, ma'am.
So what are the indications for cryoprecipitate?
It can be used for factor replacement. Along with other products like fresh frozen plasma can be used, cryoprecipitate can be used. Cryopoor plasma can also be used depending on the factor that is deficient.
You have not studied what was the indication in that particular case. Can be given that is different.
For ma'am, for which?
You have said just now, no, that you have given cryo, but what was the indication to give that? You said diagnosis, but
Ma'am, it was coagulation factor deficiency.
so no, I wanted to know for which they have given. Which coagulation factor deficiency?
Factor 8, ma'am. Thank you.
May I call upon next speaker, Sumit? Dr. Sumit? Dr. Pallavi?
Very good afternoon to all of you. Myself, Dr. Pallavi Bade, Assistant Professor from the Department of Physiology. My topic of today's presentation is systematic review of teachers' perception about the adoption and effectiveness of learning management system in higher education. Dr. Deepa Nair ma'am and Dr. Rupali Baburdikar ma'am are the co-authors for this research paper. We all have experienced the coronavirus pandemic and lockdown. That time we have shifted our traditional classroom teaching to the online platforms. But today also, nowadays Government of India is insisting and giving priority to the e-learning because that will open the new doors for internationalization and transnational educational activities that will make our students globally competent. And this we can achieve by using software application like learning management system. We call it as LMS system. And this will help us managing the learning teaching activities and learning material. But as all of us are having habit of traditional face-to-face teaching environment, it is a challenge for both students as well as teachers to adopt this new technology that is learning management system. So there is a need to study the factors affecting learning management system. Most of the educational institutes are facing difficulty to adopt learning management system, and those who have adopted learning management system are facing challenges to get the desired results. Still, most of the educational institutes are insisting their teachers to use LMS because they want to meet the global standards. They want to meet global quality control area. Also, they want to meet the expectation of the students and parents. And this study can help, or this study data can help the university leaders to understand the needs of the teachers to implement the LMS. So also, university leaders, curriculum developers, and LMS developers need the data regarding adoption and effectiveness of LMS. Also, LMS to be effective, we want a new blended learning model. And obviously, these study results will make the changes, or it will definitely help for preparing a new blended learning model. So after observing all these needs, we have formulated a research question, that is, what are the factors affecting adoption and effectiveness of learning management system in higher education with respect to teachers' perspective. So we have planned a review according to the PRISMA guidelines, which consist of
search strategy, inclusion-exclusion criteria, then data extraction, data analysis, then results and conclusion. So we have searched the articles on 3 databases, that is Google Scholar, PubMed Central, and Cochrane. Then by using the keywords like LMS and adoption, LMS and effectiveness, factors affecting LMS adoptions, and factors affecting LMS in higher education. After searching the articles, we screened them using inclusion and exclusion criteria. So we selected only the articles which are having a full text and published in peer-reviewed index journal in English language only. We considered the articles which are relevant to our research question, that is, factors affecting LMS adoption with respect to teacher's perspective. And we excluded all the articles which are not published in index journal, that are conference proceedings or dissertation thesis which are published or which are not in English language and which are not according to our eligibility criteria. So after searching these 3 databases, we got almost 508 articles. Out of that, after excluding about duplicates and excluding the exclusion criteria, we got 19 articles which are eligible. Out of them, we selected 16 articles for this study. Then for data extraction, we use some themes like name of the author, year of the publication, research approach, factors affecting and adoption and effectiveness of LMS, and research context. We extracted only the qualitative data, and we are not concerned about the quantitative data. Then we analyze the data using thematic analysis, using the themes like technical factors, organizational factor, instructional design factor, time management, and attitude factors. So we tabulated our result under these headings like name of the author, research approach, and factors affecting adoption and effectiveness. And we arranged all the studies in ascending order of publication. So in early days of LMS adoption, most of the factors are concerned about the technical factors regarding the technical knowledge and technical skills and time cursor. But in latter days, teachers are more concerned about the pedagogical knowledge, how to make their teaching learning session more effective, more interactive, and how to meet the needs of learning objective. That was the concern of the teachers. And nowadays also, most of the teachers are concerned about pedagogical knowledge only, how to use that technical knowledge to meet the demands of blended learning. Also, some teachers are concerned about the presentity of the students and students' performance. So after studying all these factors, we broadly classified them into 3 headings, that is technical factor, instructional design factor, and attitude. So mostly technical factors which are related to technical skill and knowledge, we can overcome that by arranging for workshop related to LMS. Most of the instructional design factor, which teachers are more concerned about the lesson plan for blended learning, that also we can overcome by arranging the MEU sessions for our faculties. But the literature was not addressing most of the attitude-related factors. Attitude also determines the technology adoption, because now we have to overcome the idea that only traditional teaching is effective. So it needs a change. We want to change the role of a teacher as a facilitator, because now knowledge is available online also, so we have to facilitate the learning. So this is the literature gap or research gap we found after doing this study. For accepting the technology, we want knowledge regarding LMS as well as pedagogical knowledge. But learn this knowledge, we want the habit of learning new things. And this habit will definitely depend on attitude of the teacher and individual values and virtues, where we have to work more. So nowadays, we are having a next project, and we are currently working on this, ma'am. So these are the references. And this is our take-home message today. If we teach today as we taught yesterday, we will rob our children of tomorrow. So it is our duty. Thank you.
So next conference you will be presenting that.
Yes, ma'am, definitely. We are doing a survey method for that, and we are acting now, working on it, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah.
You mentioned about eligibility criteria. You excluded some which was not as per your eligibility criteria. What were your eligibility criteria?
Ma'am, eligibility criteria, we selected only articles which are fully published. Means in some journal only abstract is available and they are asking for payment for getting full articles. So we have selected the articles only when full data is available. If it is published in peer-reviewed index journal only, and language should be English. So that was our first screening method. Then we were searching the articles related to our research question. That is, what are the factors affecting adoption and effectiveness of learning management system with respect to teachers' perspective. Because there are some paper regarding students' perspective also. So we focused on teachers' perspective. So we excluded that articles.
Do you think there is any limitation of LMS system?
Yeah, ma'am. Nowadays, teachers are concerned about the absentee of the students for physical classrooms because most of the material they are getting online. Teachers are providing study material for them. Most of the articles, study-related things we are providing them. Even PPTs we are posting. Videos we are uploading on the LMS system. So there is little bit problem about presenting for traditional classroom. That was the only concern and limit for this LMS adoption. But I think that is not the issue because our role is as a facilitator. Content is available anyway on the online. So what matters is interaction and what are their problems, that only we have to solve. Yeah. Thank you, ma'am.
Is Dr. Sumit here? Okay, Dr. Meenakshi?
Good afternoon, everybody. I am Dr. Meenakshi Surve, Assistant Professor, Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology. Today, I am going to present a comparative study on manual vacuum aspiration and electric vacuum aspiration for the management of early pregnancy abortions, a prospective study. The purpose of this study was that very few randomized controlled trials are available to compare the efficacy and effectiveness of these two procedures that are used for early pregnancy abortions. Second is to study the effectiveness and in the management of early pregnancy abortion. And third is to choose the type of procedure that can be used in a lower settings like primary healthcare centers. Hence, this study was taken up at our institute. The objectives what we kept were to compare the MVA and EVA as a method for management of early pregnancy abortion and to assess both the procedure in terms of amount of blood loss, required time for complete recovery, amount of pain that the patients observed after and during the procedure, and any post-procedure complications. Abortion rates range from 37 to 55 per 1,000 women aging between 15 to 44 years of age worldwide. And many of the women are found to be teenagers. In developing countries like ours, unsafe abortion accounts for 10 to 13% of the maternal mortality. The most common abortion procedures which we follow are vacuum aspiration, sharp curettage, and medical abortions. Here I am going to compare two procedures, that is electric vacuum aspiration, wherein we are using the electric vacuum pump for aspiration, and second is a manual vacuum aspiration, which will have a handheld plastic syringe which is managed manually. The research it's a prospective study. It is conducted at our institute, MIMER Medical College, and BSTR Hospital, Talegaon. The study was started after we got the approval from Institutional Ethics Committee. The individuals who satisfied the criteria were included in the study, and the patients were randomly selected for MVA and EVA. Inclusion criteria included all the women who presented to our OPD between 26 to 30 years of age, and here we considered only the pregnancies below 8 weeks of gestation, and missed abortion and incomplete abortions were also included. However, the exclusion criteria were the second trimester abortions and the retained placenta. Here I have studied 200 women, out of which 100 women were included in doing the MVA procedure, were included for MVA procedure, and 100 for EVA procedure. And it was all recorded in a structured case sheet, and later on it was tabulated. Demographic information like age, residence, socioeconomic status, gravida were also recorded. Primary variables included the gestational age, procedure time, blood loss, number of days of complete recovery, while the secondary variables here is the type of anesthesia administered during the procedure, grade of pain during procedure and after the procedure, amount of and the complications that the patients faced after the procedure. The data analysis was done after we entered all the data in the MS Excel worksheet. IBM SPSS Statistics 26.0 software was used, and here to note is the p-values less than 0.05 were treated as significant. Coming to the demography, demographic variables were found to be the similar because we had included the same age women in both the procedures, so there was no significant difference, and our hospital caters to the rural area. That's why most of the patients were from rural area in both the groups. Now coming to the main results, I'll be discussing the main results like procedure time. It was found that EVA and MVA, both the procedures were requiring the similar amount of time. So there was no significant difference that was observed between both the procedure. Days of complete recovery, it was seen that the MVA procedure, the complete recovery was like 1 day better than the EVA procedure. So it was statistically significant for the patients. The blood loss also was less in MVA procedure, while the EVA procedure had a slightly higher amount of blood loss. I'll come to this table later on. Now coming to the association of the procedure of evacuation to the pain after the procedure. Pain after the procedure was found to be more in the EVA patients when compared to the MVA patients. I want to judges to note that I have used a visual score for the pain. Pain score is the visual analysis score, wherein grade 1 pain is there is no pain and therefore there is no facial expression. Grade 2 is there is mild pain but there is no facial expression. Grade 3 is moderate pain wherein the patient is not requiring any analgesics, while the grade 4 pain is acute pain wherein the patients will require analgesics. Then coming to the post-procedure complications, there were no complications in both the procedures. Both procedures were found to be very, very safe for the patients. However, in EVA, we saw that headache was seen in some of the patients. Coming to the discussion, here, as I said, previous studies, that is Linakari et al., also showed the similar amount of similar outcome. That is, the blood loss was more in EVA when compared to MVA, and also the time required for the complete recovery in EVA was more than the MVA as we found in our study. Similarly, in the current study, the results indicated that there is significant difference in the grade of pain that the patient observed after the procedure. That is, EVA had more pain when compared to MVA. That is, the grade 4 pain in EVA was 66%, which was similar that was found in Tekle et al. In 2002. Coming to the previous one of my table, which shows that the pain during procedure, I would say that this is a limitation of my study because most of the procedures we tried to do under a paracervical block because we wanted to see if the procedures could be done in a lower settings like primary healthcare center. But we observed that most of the patients where we were planning for EVA, they could not tolerate the paracervical block and we had to convert it into a GA. So what happened is, so pain during the procedure, because of GA, they had zero pain. While the MVA procedures which were carried out in paracervical block, they observed they had pain. So if you see this one, we find that there was grade 4 pain in MVA during the procedure. So coming to the conclusion, I would say MVA and EVA has got same profile in managing both the patient, all the patients in abortion. But when you see at using a procedure in a lower care settings like PHCs, MVA would be easier to use because it could be done under paracervical block. Patient recovered very fast, blood loss was less, and it was simple, safe, and it was a very cost-effective method. And also there was hospital stay. When you compare the hospital, we compared the hospital stay, it was shorter for the patients with MVA as they had a complete recovery within 4 days. Thank you. These are my references.
What do you mean by complete recovery?
Complete recovery is wherein the patient could do her routine activities without any difficulties. Like there's no pain or there is no headache. It's like if you see the post-operative complications, probably the headache which we saw in EVA procedure, probably because of GA which was given and not because of the procedure.
But headache could be due to any other cause.
It can.
GA is not responsible for that. And who did all these procedures? Because there will be some difference. You have done few under paracervical block. Whether the juniors were doing or all procedures were done by senior persons, because there will be difference. No?
Yes, ma'am. I have taken the cases wherein the assistant professor and above only have done these cases, not the junior resident or the residents were not involved during the cases.
Because giving a paracervical is also
technical.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very,
so
very.
if it is not given properly, patient will have pain little bit.
Yes, ma'am.
Why there should be grade 4 pain in EVA? Because otherwise there is no reason, no?
There were some cases we found grade 4 pain, ma'am. Probably because it may be subjective because we were using that pain score. It can be subjective.
In your study, did you find any advantage of EVA over MVA?
No, ma'am. There was one more interesting observation which we saw is that the patients in the MVA, they said that there was no noise in the OT. Now that also was one of the interesting findings which we could find. But EVA as such had no advantage over MVA.
Did you get any references which were contradictory to this? What you have found?
No, ma'am.
Nowadays we are not doing EVA also, no? So routinely we are not doing.
Yes, ma'am.
So what was your purpose behind studying this EVA?
Just to compare both the procedures and that we can go for a less cost effective and a complete recovery in MVA. That's why we studied this. Thank you, ma'am.
Last call, Dr. Sumit. Okay. Micro. We gave a ring, he didn't pick the phone. So here we come to the end of the session. I would like to thank the judges for sparing their time. Throughout the day they were here. And thanks, ma'am, for joining us. And also like to thank the chairpersons for being here and gracing this occasion. I would like to ask the chairperson to felicitate the judges, please. Jayashree ma'am. I would request the judges to please fill the feedback also, as well as please sign your attendance. May I request Dr. Priya to please felicitate the chairperson? Thank you, everybody. So we call a date today. Tomorrow morning, sharp 9 o'clock, we start. Acha, please join a cup of tea and then you can leave this premise. Thank you.